This is 365 Sports.
Daniels keeps it, and he scores.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Underneath, Smith gets to the corner. Money on the rise. Touchdown, Jeremiah Smith.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Johnson buys some time. There's the tight end again, rumbling towards the end zone, and the touchdown for Anzio.
Remember when you had a guy, someone who could fix anything? They're still out there at Batteries Plus. With their quick solutions and expert advice on batteries, key fobs, and phone repair, Batteries Plus will have you in and out and on your way in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Klubnik's going to take off. Klubnik for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on a Tuesday afternoon, 365 Sports on YouTube and also at 365 Sports YT on Twitter. If you are on either one, you would please subscribe to what we do every day, sometime between around 3 and 5:30 or 6. We appreciate your time. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. To my right and left, I'm David Smoak. And in the studio, as always, Brandon, not always, but most of the time, running the motherships are Garrett Ross, Brandon Rowe, and Andrew Valade. We appreciate your time. We did not get a chance to get to this, and we'll have a couple of notes on Brett Yormark today at Big 12 Media Days. The women today, the men's basketball tomorrow. We'll have a little bit of that. Also, Kenny Dillingham on why he was so emotional after the win against Tech, and a note about Bear Bachmeier, the freshman quarterback at BYU, and some other notes too. Here is the top 25. Yesterday was so packed, we never really had a chance to get to it. Not that we didn't want to, but there we are. The only team, guys, among the top 10 that did not move up or down was number 1 ranked Ohio State with that defense that smothered Texas to start the year, and they have continued to smother everybody defensively, and they are the only team that did not move at all inside the top 10.
Yeah, it was a crazy week. Seeing Indiana and Texas A&M ranked so far ahead of places like Tennessee and Notre Dame and Oklahoma is, it's making me cross-eyed a little bit. But look, that's one of the things you got to love about college football in these last couple of years. That it's changed is that there is like new teams popping up, and we're not just kind of getting the same top 10 just reshuffled depending on who tripped up one time during the year. It truly is a lot of parity. And yeah, I don't know if I have a problem with anything on this top 25 at all.
Indiana is the one that is obviously, wow, how about what they've done? And then Vanderbilt, too, with the nice win that they had this past week. And then all the others are somewhat expected. Georgia Tech's also. 3 of the 10 are a little bit like, wow. And there's a couple right on the edge with Tech and BYU from 11 to and 14 that also, I love it. I love the fact there's infiltration if it can last.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very cool to see Indiana at number 2. That's something new and something different and something that's pretty remarkable in this day and age. I think we all expected initially, at least when all the money started flowing above board, that it would just further empower and supercharge the biggest brands. And Ohio State clearly is thriving in both eras so far. But it also has supercharged a lot more than we anticipated some of the other brands. And you make the right coaching hire, which Indiana did with Kurt Cignetti, and then you also, win games and have the right support and all of that. I think everybody can feel like there's still a chance to win these days, even though it might not have felt that way a couple years ago when you were looking down the road. And so they're a great story, and it's cool to see them at number 2, certainly deserving of that. A&M at 3. I mean, those are the 3 best teams right now, but could very easily fall to the wayside. And I think you almost expect them to, because everybody pretty much is going to have a hiccup or two before it's all said and done, but maybe not in Ohio State's case. I mean, they and Indiana now are on a collision course, and they don't play in the regular season. So number 1 versus number 2, we might have to wait like 6 weeks to see this game, but
and then
that's
we may not. And we may not if somebody trips up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we may not, obviously. Yeah. If somebody loses, and we won't. But if they are able to take care of their business, then yeah, we'll see that game in a few weeks' time. But yeah, there's a very good chance that gets disrupted somehow. A&M, great story. I like that they're flying under the radar. I mean, a lot of people are talking about them, but it's not the way they used to be talked about when they last had their wave of success, and how it all felt sort of fragile because of the parties involved, especially at head coach, versus now where they've just embraced the things that used to maybe make them a little skittish. And I think they've taken on the attitude of Elko, and it's been a breath of fresh air for A&M. So that's a nice top 3. I mean, the top 3 last week or even a couple weeks ago felt like, hey, Miami's clearly one of the best, and Ohio State's one of the best, and Oregon's one of the best. And now we've seen what's happened to Miami and Oregon, both taking one on the chin. So I don't expect that necessarily with Ohio State. I think they're a little bit of a different animal, but it's fun to see the shakeup at the top.
Well, yeah, we mentioned Indiana, and then, of course, Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech. A&M, really, they're just finally meeting expectations, and they didn't do that. They had the one good year during COVID. It just didn't count. It counted, but they didn't get in. But to see Tech and Virginia, and then USF, and then Arizona State, Cincinnati is awfully refreshing to me. A couple of nuggets. Vanderbilt. First time since 1947 that they're in the top 10. First time. They were also ranked number 1 in 1937 and 1941, number 2 in 1947. That was it when it comes to the top 10. Vanderbilt, first time since 1947. Also, 9 of the 25 teams lost last week.
Sounds
9.
like the Korean War really set back Vanderbilt.
Yeah. 9 of the top 25 lost, 4 of the top 10 lost. And again, at one point, Louisville, by the way, they had the huge win against Miami, were 0-18 all-time against top 10 teams in what were true road games, not bowl games, but true road games. They had never won a true road game on the road, 0-18, until they beat Miami to start the crazy weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty interesting stuff. I mean, Vanderbilt's a great story, and we'll see if that can continue on this weekend. But they have their work cut out for them, and I'm sure they'll be ready to embrace all that as they have been throughout this Clark Lee, but especially Diego Pavia turn. But looking at, BYU there going up to number 11 after the nice win over Utah. I mean, they're leading the pack now for the Big 12. Texas Tech dropping 7 spots. I wondered kind of where they'd fall, and it could definitely be worse. I mean, that's a lengthy drop, but still top 15 in the country. After taking your first loss, you've got some room to move up there. I'm just trying to kind of really look at the teams who fell a lot. Tennessee, 6 spots down to 17, but LSU with 10 spots down. Mm-hmm. I think everybody's starting to kind of give up their original beliefs on LSU and how good they actually are, and that's product of some of the other results, but 10 spots, that's a pretty dramatic drop for anybody, especially a team like LSU. So yeah, I think people the fairy dust is wearing off from the off season finally with the Tigers there. But they'll have some more cracks at big games as well. Good to see Cincinnati get a little further in there as well. Not feeling like, hey, if you lose this weekend, you're right back out, even though that's probably still the case, because if you lose to Baylor, that's going to be a bad loss for you at home. But yeah, good to see, again, a couple of teams. We've seen A&M up near the top, but it just feels different because it's Elko versus Jimbo or Kevin Sumlin.
It feels legitimate.
It feels legitimate. Yeah, it feels actually legitimate. Indiana's obviously shocking to be where they are, although how much longer will that really be shocking? And then it's kind of the rest of the who's who. I mean, Georgia Tech, I don't think – maybe it's surprising somewhat they're 7-0, but they were pretty widely talked about as a favorite to win the ACC throughout the offseason. So I don't think it's that surprising that they are where they are. But it's fun to see them there as well. I mean, I'm all for the Blue Bloods getting their fair share, but I love it when the other teams have a say in it. And I think we've got a great mix right now of a little bit out of every basket to satisfy everybody.
Georgia Tech's first top 10 appearance since 2014. Paul, who was on that team? Who was that? I'm thinking, because I remember.
Gosh, I mean, that would have been.
Was that the Joe?
No, gosh, that was back when I was in school.
Okay,
Joe Hamilton.
Joe Hamilton was pretty good.
Yeah. Listen, I watched Joe Hamilton not throw an incompletion in the second half my freshman year at FSU and thought like, oh, do they suck now that I came here? But they wound up winning. But it was, he was one fun player to watch.
I would say 0% chance that you would guess who Virginia Tech's main quarterback was, and I'd give Paul. I mean, I don't really know. We've never explored this. I'd give you a very low percentage chance.
Yeah, I'm trying to like in 2014. That was after Demaryius Thomas.
Oh, let me look it up.
No.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So, like, I'm trying to think of the guys on that team. And look, FSU, we didn't play them for quite a long time, actually.
Well, he was a dual threat. I'll tell you that damn much.
Yeah, go ahead and tell me.
Justin Thomas.
Oh, yeah. That's been a long time.
I don't remember him at all.
Yeah, it's been a long time, yeah.
Oh, so there we are. There's the top 25. You want to give your thoughts on it, and we've given some of ours. I just love some of the names in there. Now, whether they have sustaining power, it looks like some of them might, and they might still keep going up. Georgia Tech, of course, is one that we just brought up and mentioned their history.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make too much of it. I mean, every poll is a mix, right? I mean, it's not like it's always dominated by the Big Ten and SEC, although people still feel that way regardless of even if the proof says otherwise. But, yeah, I mean, Cincinnati's kind of new again, a few years removed from their playoff run. South Florida is just, I mean, they've been sort of in and out, but they've entrenched themselves now there where without a bad loss, they should hang around there for a while. Tech hadn't really hung around the polls in a really long time. So, yeah, I mean, BYU's climbing up. They've been around the polls now for a while. But, yeah, Vandy being as high as they are, it's cool. And then to see, a Michigan there at the tail end trying to hang on desperately to being in the polls, just got back in it. But if they lose again, they're right back out of it. Kind of the same situation that some of the schools like in Arizona State finds itself in, where they got this big win, they're back in the top 25, but if they lose, they're right back out of that thing. It feels like they've bounced back and forth for like the last month, really. But Texas still in there, so
they're lingering.
They're in that lingering group there from 20 to 25. LSU trying to hang on, as we mentioned there. So I mean, pretty soon these will give way to the playoff rankings, which I don't think will be drastically different in any way, and then people can turn to rants about how those are wrong, even though they're going to be pretty much the same thing, I would think. But we're getting close to that time where those are eventually the rankings that we now go to, and it's setting up to be a hell of a race. I mean, this has been a really fun season. I'm not drinking Kool-Aid when I say that. I've really enjoyed it. I think I've enjoyed it as much because of the product, but also the way we've approached it, like just our different schedules versus maybe like a year ago. Been able to enjoy it a lot more on Saturdays, and it's been a great year to have that extra time to really enjoy it. And so I cannot wait for this second half.
I have watched 8 to 12 hours, depending on which Saturday of college football, from the 11 o'clock games all the way up until I finally just, okay, I'm done. Like, for example, Florida State, Stanford into the morning. I just can't wait. By the way, Mac Rose, I texted him about 3 days ago. He was on his way into Fort Worth, and I think he's almost ready to camp out there. That's not that far, as you said. He was also there to watch Baylor and TCU, but also the Gaylord as they get ready to start unleashing some of that. Not yet, but down the road.
Because he's now the head of the playoff.
Yeah, he's a college football committee chairman. Now, spokesperson.
I see you skipped over Nebraska falling out of the rankings, but that's okay.
I've had enough of that.
We don't have to talk about trauma.
Listen,
we don't.
Have you had a good year?
No.
Again,
No.
I haven't had one in over a decade, since Ndamukong Suh probably. Craig has been really down the last 2 or 3 years, have not been as like what you like.
Look,
All three of our team. Craig's number one. Nebraska, Florida State, they don't even deserve to be mentioned.
Let me go wider out than that.
You did yesterday.
Let me go wider out than that. Okay, Florida State is a disaster. The Cowboys are the world's biggest soap opera on purpose. Washington keeps having injuries, even though there's promise there for you guys.
No.
You and I are Spurs fans, and we keep waiting for the Wemby era to really fully begin, which it hasn't. Craig had to disavow his NBA team last year because of the dumbest trade perhaps in the history of sports. What else can I throw out there? The Rangers won a World Series a couple years ago, so you guys are still in the bubble there. The Red Sox, they just put the tip in this year in the playoffs, and then I'm just sitting here going, all right. And the Blue Jays are in the World Series, and they're in their damn division, so it's not great. Mookie's in the World Series.
What a game last night with the former Astros star Springer hitting the 3-run homer. We'll have more of that, Craig, with Off the Radar a little bit later on. Here are the bangers. 3 bangers are, as we say, you cannot have an unranked team in a banger. You could have like a semi-banger, but this is like 3 games, all of them ranked inside the top 10, and all of them including SEC schools. Ole Miss and Oklahoma, we make our picks today. We'll put them on tomorrow, right? Is it tomorrow or Thursday? We do our picks. It will be Thursday. We were given the list today. That game right there gave me a headache. Missouri at Vanderbilt, that game gave me a headache. Both Vanderbilt and A&M coming off big wins, and Ole Miss the loss. So A&M plays at LSU in Baton Rouge. All of these games to me are just pick it. I don't know. Throw up a coin, heads or tails.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short list, but there's going to be a bunch of other games that have like half the equation of a ranked team versus an unranked team that are plenty appetizing as well. But yeah, relatively short list, and it's all SEC. And I see kind of fitting that we go from the top 25 rankings to discussing this, where I guess if there was some sort of, conversation about the rankings that I've seen bubbling around, and I don't typically I like just kind of to maintain my own thoughts for the show, if that makes sense. I don't like to just wait and get everybody's opinion on everything, but I see a lot of this talk about the rankings each week. It seems pretty popular to discuss and everything. And I find some of it entertaining, but I guess one of the little, summaries of this week was the SEC is overrated, which you can have that conversation like every week, and some people do, but it's like, no, they're not. I mean, no, there's a bunch of really good teams. And I think there are some years where you can go they're throwing Vanderbilt a bone to give them why are they 24 instead of unranked? You can get into those kind of squabbles, but I think, LSU's hanging on, but all these other 5 teams are absolutely every bit as legit as they can be. And so this is setting up for, a hell of a weekend. I do think LSU's teetering, but this would be the perfect time for them to give A&M a typical A&M, obstacle that they are not expecting or were hoping to avoid. But I really like A&M's chances to win this game going to Death Valley, a lot more so than I would in previous years. But yeah, I mean, besides LSU, the other 5 teams are all looking great right now, and even the Tigers, when they play their best, are still better than most. So
they've lost twice, right?
Yeah,
they've lost. LSU has lost to who? Garrett. They just lost a game, obviously.
Have his microphone ready. They lost to Ole Miss and Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. So they've lost to 2 high, ranked teams. They've also beaten 2 teams, Clemson and Florida, that were, not quite what we thought when the season began.
Yeah, the resume sucks compared to the first 3 weeks of the season because both those teams are not very good at all and probably aren't making bowl games. I mean, in Clemson's case, maybe we'll see they will. But, that LSU rating at the beginning of the season and a couple of those wins early on don't look nearly the same as they do now. And the one win that you've had to break up those couple losses was South Carolina at home. So that was a close game as well. So yeah, LSU, it's been a bit of a struggle. And even the games they won, those games early on that you thought were great wins, those were like 1, maybe 2, was it one of them was 10-point game.
It's like a 1-score game against Clemson.
Yeah, that was 17-10, and the other one was 20-10.
Both paper Tigers.
Yeah, so I mean they've been flirting with the average line, I think, all year long.
Yeah,
LSU.
K Hustle, we appreciate this in the chat, saying that all of those bangers, if they're close games, most likely none of them fall out of the top 25. Well, there's that there's that. The LSU, though, that would be 3 losses. That puts them kind of – it depends on what happens behind them. Who else wins behind them?
Yeah, that's where,
all the other ones are pretty much locked in for at least another week.
That's where we do get into like the conversation that people can have when they go, well, that's the difference between the SEC or whatever. But I mean, yeah, it depends. Like I don't want to start riffing on that if it hasn't even happened yet. But yeah, you're probably right in a lot of those cases, especially, like Missouri's not going to fall 10 spots if they play a close game against the top 25 team. And that would be ludicrous if they did. I think we should be mad if they fell 10 spots if it was a relatively close game. So yeah, there is some, certainly to your point, I believe what you're trying to get at is some self-reinforcing with the rankings sometimes. But I think in terms of these teams, LSU's either going to continue to swim, or they're not, and they're teetering. But everybody else, I think they're very deserving of being where they are. And even with the loss, I still think they're some of the best teams in the country.
If LSU loses at home, though, by let's say 10 or more, then they have to be – there's a chance they could lose enough of the grip. But I think they still probably remain inside. Because then tell me their best win.
For LSU?
Yeah, Clemson or Florida. And again, that's still nice.
South Carolina, actually.
Yeah. Well, all those teams have losing records, though.
Yeah.
South Carolina losing record, Florida losing record, Clemson losing record.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not including them in this. I'm saying that they're the one that has the chance to fall out. Everybody else, barring something, is going to be in, and they deserve to be in. Is my point.
They do. All right.
It does kind of suck for A&M that they could go to Baton Rouge at night, win the game, and then that not really. If LSU keeps going down a path, that win. I mean, it's important, but it won't maybe count as much as it would normal years.
That's what I always have wondered over the years, and the playoff committee does this, did you win a game against a ranked team, and are they still ranked? And a lot of it's like, okay, but what happened? Did they lose a star quarterback, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, all this can get decided in a month from now when they get the playoff rankings going and we start to get into the nitty-gritty of game control and whatever else they've got up their sleeves this year to quarterback injuries or this injury or that injury. I mean, yeah, we're getting close to that time period, not quite there yet, and too many big games to be played to be declaring too much right now. But those are some good games this weekend. I mean, Missouri-Vandy, that's a coin flip. And Ole Miss, Oklahoma, that feels very much like a coin flip to me. I've kind of got in mind who I want to pick in all three of these, but to me, A&M LSU is like the easiest call, and I feel crazy saying that because it's Death Valley on a Saturday night, and I'm going like, yeah, A&M's going to roll in there and beat LSU, but that's how I feel right now. So
I think we have two or three of those games are in our 5 that we'll pick, but all of them, to me, you literally don't have an idea unless you'll find out once the games are done. Kenny Dillingham. I'm not sure if you saw his post-game interview after the win against Texas Tech. Of course, they flooded the field. And if you haven't heard, the Big 12 has reprimanded them and also fined them for doing that. I'm sure perhaps BYU is next. But he was very emotional and almost like he cut off his post-game interview with the sideline reporter, and his voice kind of cracked. Today, he was asked, why so emotional?
In this world, you go from hero to zero. You go from in the castle to in the outhouse overnight. I mean, there's not a transition period. You're just there. That's where you go. There's no middle ground in this thing. You're either a lead or you suck. There's no such thing as average or good. You're either great or you're horrible, right? And that's the world we live in. So to see our guys, we've talked all offseason about response to failure. Not response to success. How are we going to respond to failure? How are we going to respond to failure? And to see our guys fail at such a high level and our team fail at such a high level and us respond at equally as high of a level, that was pretty cool to see.
He, of course, talking about the blowout loss to Utah when they were bludgeoned by Utes and then bounced back to win against a really good team in Texas Tech. That's what he's talking about, how they respond to failure.
Yeah, sometimes you can say the word respond to the players don't make fun of you. But Kenny Dillingham, just doing it. I mean, he's the best young coach in the country for a reason. I mean, he's just kind of figured it out there at Arizona State, and he knows how to deal with things. And I know he left the sideline interview. If anybody was upset with that, I'm sure he's like, I'm sorry, but yeah, he went to go live in the moment because those don't come around maybe as often as you want. You want to appreciate the ride, which I sometimes think that we're I always think it, that we're not really good at appreciating the ride. We kind of just want to get to the destination.
Yeah, that's why you got people talking playoffs like first thing out of their mouth on a Monday after this weekend. And I get it to an extent, but it's also like the same person will tell you like they're killing the regular season. It's like it's week 7 and the first thing you're talking about is the playoff seeding. So I mean, we're all guilty of that to some degree, and I think that's just life in general, not just college football, but everything. And so yeah, we want to fast forward for whatever reason instead of just kind of soaking it in. And so I can definitely respect and understand where he's coming from. I did think it was hella awkward though. Like he's Kenny, and he's just like suddenly just not there and just leaves the interviewer just standing there in the midst of this sea of people. I definitely don't have like any feeling towards the TV networks as though they're deserving of anything, but it was sort of awkward. And it's like, I want to say it's the second time I've seen him do that this year. There was another win they had earlier this year where they were trying to interview him and he like half answered a question and then he just like faded into the crowd. And so, I think that kind of stuff can be very tedious. There's nothing I hate more than the third quarter interview live in a game and stuff like that. But the post game, I get one of them to capture that. And I felt sort of bad for the sideline reporter, but at the same time, I totally understood where he's coming from. But like the next time this happens, like, dude, you got to do the interview. Like it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. But like the next time, like at some point you got to stick around and do it.
He needs to grab his belt.
Something, I don't know. Grab his ear.
Yeah, but you got to have somebody, you kind of got to like almost block him out with your hip.
It's just a couple times now that's happened this year, but it's been for emotional reasons, and I totally get it. And he's one of the best young coaches in the country without a doubt. And I think it's going to be a very interesting test for Kenny Dillingham because he is Mr. Arizona State and loves Arizona State and loves the state of Arizona and all those things. And he's clearly building something pretty cool and pretty unique and pretty original there in Tempe. And you just know that everybody else wants to get their hands on that. And what will be able to ply him away from there? How much money will it take? If there is a dollar figure, what situation would it have to be to pull him out of there? And I hope there isn't one, because I think him creating an empire of some sort there, the Dillingham Empire at Arizona State, whatever that would look like, would be way cooler than seeing him just go fill a spot at Ohio State or insert Penn State or whatever and just be the next guy that was the next guy following the next guy. So I love how unique that story is. And I think it's very cool to see a product like Arizona that was just sort of lifeless and dead for so long be pretty cool.
That is a powerhouse waiting to happen.
Yeah, and
I really do think that. Whether they can sustain it, we use that word a lot. I have, but he's got a chance there. If they can get that thing going and go year by year and keep on doing it, then that place has a chance to be a special.
He can coach. Like that's the thing. He can coach. Like he can scheme you up. He can X and O you. Now he doesn't always make the right decision, but I think that's the difference. Is he can acquire talent. He can find talent and break down talent, but he also knows how to coach. And that's not the case. Some guys are just talent guys, right? But I think he's kind of the total package. And to be as young as he is and still learning lessons along the way, I think he's just going to be just incredibly good here in the next few years.
The only thing standing in Arizona, well, this is probably true for a lot of schools, but very much in the case of Arizona State, the only thing that's kind of standing in their way is themselves, is their own limitations of what they're able to do, what they're willing to do to build their athletic department. That stands for all the sports. They've got they have some reasonably good hit. They have a really great history in baseball that kind of washed away over the years in the Pac-12 that they could bring back. But football in particular, which is the crown jewel of all sports, they could really do something right now if they're committed to it. So to me, the only tell me one thing outside of how much money they're willing to put into things and how much investment they are that's standing in their way as a university of being a dominant football program. I can't name you one.
I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah. That's it. But they're basically one of the most beautiful places without a beach, as far as I'm concerned. It's a gorgeous place, and it's blowed up. I mean, that place has grown over the last 25 years like you can imagine.
Here's the other thing. When you start to talk like actual factual realignment stuff, not just like these wish casting of like these crazy scenarios that are unlikely, but you talk about like the things that very well could happen. Like we fully acknowledge, like, could Kansas one day, as their side has been reporting to some degree for like 5 years, get that Big Ten invite? We know there's been at least some level of interest. Like, I don't think that would be shocking with their basketball program and things like that. Utah's fans, they talk about it a lot, at least a segment of them do. Like, I don't know how realistic that is, but there's many of them that believe they could get that call to go join the Big Ten. I don't know what the SEC's plans are in the future, like how much they want to take on outside of what they'll probably grab from the ACC. But, you know, would they be interested in Kansas's basketball program? I don't know. But we talk about, like, we hear about Utah from the Utah fans that they're going to the Big Ten in the near future. We hear about who else did I just mention?
Kansas
and their opportunities. And that's been like an ongoing thing for like over 5 years. I've been hearing Kansas to so-and-so rumors about the Big Ten or seeing those online. And maybe one day they come true. Arizona State's a legit school that I don't think gets talked about enough in that regard. Like, I've seen it mentioned here and there, but that you talk about a prime school in a prime locale that's growing and that has AAU status and has a lot of upside. If the business side is taken care of and doesn't get to be all messy like it was the last few years before they entered the Big 12, then that's a school right there that you look at and go, well, hell, would they be a candidate? I think they would be. I think they've got a ton of upside. So, yeah, if they just keep going about their business, the only thing really standing in their way is them.
That's what I was saying. No, you're right.
I'm glad you
guys are absolutely backing it up because it's true. And they got the women's basketball coach is going to bring them.
Molly Miller.
Overrated as hell. But
golf, with all they've done, they got a really nice athletic department. All right, now, Bear Bachmeier, look at this note. True freshman quarterbacks in college football to start their careers at 7-0. Jalen Hurts at Alabama. Jake Fromm, Georgia. Trevor Lawrence won a national championship at Clemson. And Bear Bachmeier, who was fun to watch unless you were the Utah defensive coordinator or fan, with what he's done so far with BYU.
Yeah, Jake Fromm.
It's all happened recently. It's like, why not 1954? Well, the freshmen weren't allowed, of course, to play for a long time.
Jake Fromm was a guy I thought was going to have maybe a more illustrious career, but that's also right at the beginning of where Kirby Smart started to pop. So he had a bunch of guys coming in, and eventually, Fromm got hurt, lost his job, and all that. But if he is anything like the other two, that's going to be one hell of a career for Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the least heralded, although it probably feels like he was heralded to some degree because there was so much talk about him when they had to go get him because of the Retzlaff situation. So we did hear a good amount of his background and kind of the little bit of hype about what he could be, but never would have guessed that they'd be starting off the way that they are at 7-0 with him being such a huge part of that. So I think that's nothing anyone could have predicted. And the fact that they haven't struggled all that much, and when they have, he's been able to break off a big run or hit Chase Roberts for a critical first down or get a special teams play or something. Like, they are just, as I've said every single week during the Mojo rankings, they are just a very well-rounded team, the most well-rounded team in the league. Now that Tech is taking a hickey, I still think Tech's very, very good, but BYU's 7-0, so that says it all there. And they're in the driver's seat right now, along with Cincinnati. But there's still a very crowded race behind them for 2 and 3, so they can't afford to slip up. And look, the real test for BYU are just starting. I mean, that Utah game was the starting point of this next month of where they're going to play the quote unquote top-ish teams that could give them a run for their money. So I'm excited rather than it being some kind of like they're playing, all due respect, like Oklahoma State and whoever else, and not really padding that resume all that much, just picking up wins. Like, they're going to pad the resume here over the next month if they keep winning, and they will have a very legit case for the playoff and so on and so forth. So, yeah, he's been great. He's had some mistakes, but they've been able to cover him up or overcome them, and he was the better quarterback in that matchup the other night, without question. Made the least costly mistakes, made the huge plays when they needed them, and, BYU is a very interesting story right now.
And then you have defense. And Ohio State has moved into number 1 when it comes to Max Olson's college football stop rate. Tech was 1. They dropped slightly with the loss. And also, it's not like Arizona State went up and down the field on them, but it's a very close race. And Ohio State has been just solid as a rock. They shut out Wisconsin, I believe. Oklahoma, despite getting Texas was better that day, also got another special teams play like they did twice against Kentucky. Then you have UT. Their defense is just as good, I'm not sure about as good as the last couple of years, but they're right there. And then Tech and Toledo is at number 5. Those are the top 10, tied for 10, Iowa, Maryland, LSU stop rate defenses.
Ohio State was the second team in a row to shut out Wisconsin. Iowa did it the week before. Oklahoma, their defense, that's the reason I picked them against Texas. I just thought their defense would slow down that offense enough to where it didn't matter who was playing quarterback. They weren't going to score enough points. And actually, you take away that punt return, and they really didn't give up that many points against Texas. Their offense was just so bad that day. But yeah, to see Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas Tech, especially getting most of their talent out of a state that for a long time didn't play defense, and now it's all kind of changed, is wild. It's absolutely wild that they're all three that good. But yeah,
Indiana in the top 10. You hear about the offense, the quarterback Mendoza, Surratt, the receiver, among the offensive weapons they have, but number 9 in stop rate defensively. That is a nice part that gets overlooked quite a bit for the Hoosiers, probably too much. Notre Dame left guard Billy Schrauth is out for the year, out for 3 to 4 weeks after a knee injury he suffered against USC. Team captain for the number 12 Irish, viewed as one of the top draft prospects among draft-eligible guards. He's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, Notre Dame's captain and left guard. Now, today, Big 12 Media Days up in Kansas City, right? And basketball, women today, men tomorrow. Brett Yormark was asked, John Kurtz, by the way, the one asking the question about, and when I heard the question initially, maybe I misunderstood the question, but the answer is obviously going to be, well, here's Brett Yormark when asked about eventually the college football playoff and automatic qualifiers.
I know you've been a big proponent of the 5+11 playoff format. There was a report about a month ago from Ross Dellinger. Could be a format out there with 3 or 4 auto bids for each Power 4 conference. Is that something that you could get behind in supporting or change your stance?
Is your question, would I get behind a format that gave us the same amount as the ACC, the SEC, and the Big Ten?
Correct.
I'd be up for that. I'd consider that. I've always said you got to earn it on the field, right? And, nothing should be predetermined, come the beginning of the season. So if there was a conversation about a format that gave the 4 power conferences the same amount of AQs, I'm all ears. You got to be thoughtful about whatever format change. The 12-team format worked. Last year, it was dramatic. It was great football. You had the right teams in, and that's all I want. I want to give our schools a chance each and every year to compete at the highest levels in the college football playoff. And if we're on equal footing with our colleagues, I'm all in on that conversation.
If General Clark called Brett Yormark and or Phillips at the ACC and said, hey, guys, by the way, we've decided we're going to give automatic qualifiers, and then they kind of go gulp, and the SEC, ACC, Big 12, and the Big 10 are all going to have the same amount of automatic qualifiers, they would run to wherever they needed to in Irving to meet with General Clark, the man who runs the college football playoff now, and sign it before it was printed. I can't imagine that will ever happen, but to me, that was an answer. When Yormark answered it that way, it didn't surprise me at all. Hell yeah, we would want that.
Sure, I'll take that lottery ticket that's worth $4 million.
Yeah.
I'd consider that. Yeah, I bet you would. Yeah, of course. I like how he tries to play it off as though he's got some say in it, though. I'd consider that. He does to some extent, but as we know, there's a couple of leagues that are really calling the shots ultimately, but there have been disruptions. The Big Ten hasn't just had its way with format. They've tried to go to the table with over and over again to kind of get their way, only to get pushed back and only to go back to the drawing board. And you kind of wonder where that was going to fall for the Big 12 or the ACC, all these different things being thrown out, especially that didn't look at them in a very favorable light, or one where they just didn't, I guess, in their positions feel like it was worth agreeing to without a little bit of a fight, when you're being told well, you'll get your champion in, but beyond that, we can't guarantee anything. Meanwhile, we're going to take 3 automatically no matter what. They needed to fight that. But yeah, beyond eventually the SEC swinging over to the other side to where the Big Ten was suddenly on an island by its own in regards to the playoff format they had thrown out. it's kind of been a quiet conversation here lately, which I've enjoyed because we've been able to focus on the season. But it's about time to start talking about that because they need to get it done. And yeah, of course, any format where the Big 12's getting equal bids, yeah, hell yeah, he's going to be for that. And probably counting his lucky stars in private that they would be given such an opportunity, because I don't think that he probably ever thought that would be the case, no matter how much he believes in the league or not, because there wasn't really a whole lot of reason to believe that would be the case. But here we are, and if it's a possibility, then yeah, they'd be like you said, they'd run to the front of the line and sign it as quickly as possible in blood if they needed to.
It would absolutely do that. Wrap that up, and we got a break.
Yeah, I mean, I still hate that automatic qualifier should ever really be a thing.
Yes, that's first.
But I do see look, if you're those other conferences, I don't see any reason why you should run, not walk, whatever, to go sign it. I won't love it, but I mean, I'll love it more than like we get 6 of them because we've determined we're better than you arbitrarily.
Yeah. No. So there we are. Big 12 Media Days. John Kurtz, thank you. Brett Yormark was there and, of course, answering questions. We'll have a couple of the college basketball coaches, some comments from tomorrow, the men's basketball media day tomorrow. When we come back, Brett Ciancia, Pick Six previews around the corner, Shahan Jararaja, Craig's off the radar, all of it. That's just part of what we have. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Alumni Group, Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe, they have a game on the road this week in Cincinnati. So that's, that's going to be on the road. But coming up in a couple of weeks, it is homecoming week, and the Baylor Alumni Group is putting together quite a bit. In fact, they will have award ceremonies, alumni award ceremonies throughout the weekend. On October 30th, the event from 6 to 8 at the Hurd Welcome Center, they will have the Hall of Fame induction. $100 a person, $800 a table. You can contact them for that. There's the reunion remix on the next day, on Friday, and you can join them for a low-stress, just kind of chill-out event before the game on Saturday against UCF. If you want to be a part of any of the events or you want to know more about the events when it comes to the Baylor alumni with Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe, and they'll be set up for a big day on that day at McLean Stadium with their tailgate across the pedestrian bridge, food, music, festivities, and more, the Baylor alumni.
My go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf car batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com.
Golfballs.com carries the latest selection of golf balls, clubs, and gear from brands such as Titleist, TaylorMade, and Callaway. Golfballs.com remains the world leader in golf customization. And of course, online at golfballs.com.
UBO Business Services. We are a studies-based service organization that is the best in Texas when it comes to copiers, printers, and scanners. The way we quantify that is through a company used by millions of corporations called Net Promoter Score. What Net Promoter Score looks at are your Google reviews. We have a better Net Promoter Score than H-E-B with a 65 and Ritz-Carlton Hotels with a 70. According to Net Promoter Score, if you're a 70 or above, you're considered world-class in customer service. UBO Business Services is an 86 when it comes to Net Promoter Score. You can find us at ubeo.com, ubeo.com.
It's back 0% for 72 months on all 2025 Ram 1500 trucks during the Drive into Fall event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Check out a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $16,000 off, or a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $12,000 off, and both at 3.9 for 72 months. And if you drive a Ford, Toyota, or GM, get an extra $1,500 bonus cash. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin. And you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
It's football season, and we can create your outdoor tailgating spaces that is actually a part of your home. Bifold doors that tie in the inside and the outside, and you can gain anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 square feet living space, all while taking in the big game, poolside. Call us at Gather & Co. Kitchen and Bath, where we can create your unique tailgating space.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Oh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Got floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels. We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We got a chance to have Brett Ciancia on a couple of different times this year. Pick Six Previews. The magazine was sent to us, and what he does every weekend, he kind of gobbles all that up, and he joins us. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to college football. That's what he does. That's what the magazine talks about. He joins us on 365 Sports. Brett, thank you very much. How would you describe, forget about the coaching carousel, but just the season itself and what you've seen so far?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate that big intro. And yeah, it's hard to believe we're halfway through this great season. Biggest standouts to me, well, coming into this, what I would have said Miami and Texas Tech, and then both of them got upset last week as double-digit favorites. That goes to show you how college football never ceases to amaze. So, biggest storylines, yeah, Ohio State defense looks elite, and they're the number one team, the clear number one for me. A&M riding a nice undefeated run right now. Let's see, I mean, the Big 12 quarterback play has really stood out to me as being elite all over the place. Wide open race in that conference now. So, a lot of different storylines we can hit on. I'm wide open. I'm really excited to break it down with you.
What do you think about some of the teams like Georgia Tech and others that don't maybe have that much of a tough path to the playoff now that Georgia Tech's already played all the best teams that they're going to play until they may get to the ACC championship game?
Yeah, there are a couple undefeated, Georgia Tech and BYU, who are really scraping by with one-score victories. And, all you have to do is win. But when you're looking to project forward, that calls into question whether they can really run the table. And with Georgia Tech, they have a couple coin flip type games, in my opinion, coming up here within the ACC. And I have them projected to lose to Georgia in rivalry week. So I think they need to go win their conference title game. And it looks like they'll be playing in it, whether that's probably against Miami or Louisville. And then meanwhile, with BYU, a similar type season. Actually, there's a lot of parallels between Georgia Tech and BYU. I mean, they both have this dual threat quarterback, Haynes King and Barrett Bachmeier, both getting the job done with their legs. Really powerful runners at quarterback. And then defenses that are timely and making stops when they need to. So both are really strong in the red zone last week, too. But yeah, so with Georgia Tech, they have a good shot to make it to the ACC title game. BYU has a tougher path, I think, and I think that might come down to Texas Tech and Arizona State over there, but it's still wide open in the Big 12.
What were your thoughts, Brett, on seeing Arizona State? I mean, not a shocker because, hey, they won the league last year. They have a great quarterback and all of that, but just so much momentum riding alongside Texas Tech there these first few weeks. Just how big of a shakeup do you think that is, and how do you think the Red Raiders are able to respond?
I was honestly shocked to be, because look at Texas Tech the first 6 games. They weren't just 6-0. They were 6-0 with 6 blowouts, all of them by 20-plus points, all of them by 200 yards, yardage margins. It was incredible what they did the first 6 weeks. So I thought they were going to just continue that path forward. It's heavy favorites the rest of the way. And with Arizona State, remember, they were coming off the 42-10 loss to Utah. I know they were without Sam Levitt that game, but Sam Levitt doesn't play defense, and they gave up 42 points to Utah. So I thought they'd come out, and I thought Texas Tech would be able to move the ball more effectively. It was a wild fourth quarter, guys. I hope you got to see that one, in addition to what the games you were covering. But, man, what a back-and-forth game. And then you got to credit Sam Levitt. He's back from the injury, a gutsy fourth quarter, 2-minute drive to win it, and then pandemonium in Tempe. So, yeah, I was shocked just based off the few weeks prior.
Who is outside of the top 25 not getting, you think, enough attention or love?
Oh, okay. I think you got to look at the Big 12 because I think there's a lot of really solid teams in that conference that are being overlooked. And, I think Utah, despite the 2 losses, I think they are one of the best 25 teams in the country. I've been really high on TCU, love their offense. I want to, they're 5-2, sitting there 5-2. Who else we got? I was really high on Washington coming into this week until they disappointed against Michigan. They need to earn back some respect this week of playing Illinois, a similar type team, similar physical team. That's who I would go with right now. I'm not even sure. Is USC still ranked? I think they're one of the top 25
they're out.
teams.
USC, Utah, Nebraska, and Memphis fell out of the top 25 after the weekend.
Yeah, I would say the Utah and USC. I think that they still belong to be ranked. I would not vouch for Nebraska. They were really pushed around and punished by Minnesota last Friday night. That was not even competitive. So they have a lot of work to do at Nebraska.
Brett, what do you think of some of the coaching changes that have happened and will happen? Which is the one? Obviously James Franklin is the most shocking, but which one is the one that did surprise you maybe out of some of the others?
Yeah, well, I'm based here in Pennsylvania, so you can imagine all I hear about is the James Franklin one. So that's been crazy. The 14-day stretch where they were hosting a whiteout as a top 2 team in the country, and then 14 days later they're without a coach. Unbelievable. Never seen anything like it. Florida, I think we saw Billy Napier's timing coming, even though they got the vote of confidence last year. I'll spin it back the other way. The guy that I'm shocked that is still hired, instead of who are you shocked that did get fired, I think Luke Fickell. I can't believe he's still hired over at Wisconsin. They're just not competitive on either side of the ball. He's got a losing record now through 3 years, sitting there 2-5, just uncompetitive. You got an empty stadium at Camp Randall. Used to be one of the hardest places to play. And I saw that their athletic director put out a statement of approval. I'm shocked by that one because they are just falling off from where they used to be.
So we've only played about half the season. There's team 6 games, 7 games, whatever, but it has been exciting. And when we see Indiana, we didn't know if last year was a one-year wonder. Well, no, it's not. In fact, they're even better. And then you see Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt with what Georgia Tech does and Vanderbilt. Those 2 coaches are both rock tough guys. I love the way they play the game. And Vanderbilt seems like they're here for the long haul. That's not going to be a one upset team and then kind of fall apart.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's storylines all over the place. I'm glad you touched on Indiana. Probably the most losingest, or whatever you want to call it, program in the last 50 years, last 100 years. They've been the Big Ten punching bag forever. And Kurt Cignetti, one of the best coaching turnarounds of all time. I think you put him now, because, they went 11-1 last year. They got some critiques because in their 2 biggest games, they came up short. But this time around, beating Oregon in Austin Stadium, I think that took that rebuild to the next level. You can consider him alongside Bill Snyder now and Barry Alvarez and maybe Mike Leach in terms of the biggest program turnarounds of all time in college football. So unbelievable job by Cignetti, and he's there for the long haul. They got him all the NIL money and all the coaching contracts he could want. So he's got that chip on his shoulder. He wants to build Indiana into the superpower team.
What do you think about Texas A&M's staying power in this top 5?
I really like Texas A&M, and coming into the season, what I liked was their offensive line, bringing 5 starters back. It was a couple NFL grades there on the offensive line. Love what they did in the transfer portal at receiver with Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver coming in. The one question I had was at quarterback because Marcel Reed, we'd only seen him a few games. Wanted to see him as a full-time starter. So if that was the only question, they have certainly answered the call with him because he looks incredible right now, playing really sharp football. He reminds me of Dennis Dixon. It's a rare reference, but when I was watching him, I don't know why it brought me back to mid-2000s Oregon, but he is, he's elusive with the ball. He's making every throw. And I think A&M, I mean, they have a good shot to go undefeated now. Now that a couple of their opponents in November have looked a little bit worse than we originally forecasted, with LSU being downgraded and Texas certainly being downgraded. I think A&M's a playoff team here.
Well, you bring up Texas, so I might as well ask about them right here. Your thoughts on going from number one preseason, best ranking ever, to then losing a game against Florida that felt like it just turned everything on, upside down on its head after the debut loss against Ohio State. Now they've won a couple in a row. But, man, it took everything, Brett, that they could throw at Kentucky last week to win that game as far as just outlasting them. Where are you on the Longhorns right now?
Yeah, I'm shocked by how weak the passing offense looks. I mean, I know they're 5-2. That's a shaky 5-2. I mean, they're really, really riding this defense, and I guess we got to give them some credit. It is one of the best defenses in the country. They're getting no help from the offense, but I don't think that offense is going to hold up here in late October and into November. It's going to be a serious liability for them. A couple games in a row with under 50% completion, it's just not going to cut it. You're missing open guys, missing touchdowns that are being left on the field. Had a couple nice throws against against Oklahoma in the Red River game. And the special teams have been great for Texas with the punt returns the last 2 weeks. But I think that passing game is going to catch up to them. I see them tacking on a few more losses here to close it out.
Over 100,000 followers on Twitter at Pick Six Previews, most yards per play margin. And then somebody followed up with a question today and said, what are the worst yards per play margin among the Power Four teams? Rutgers at -2.2. -2.2. That you're not going to go anywhere if you're a minus, right, Brett?
And that's pretty bad. And you know what? The worst two in that category, they just got done playing Oregon. So what's that tell you about Oregon? They are punishing people. And I think that they're going to run the table after that loss to Indiana. Oregon's a really young team, and I think you're going to see them continue to grow. And by the time that playoff comes around in December and January, they are a serious player to win it all. So, yeah, that's the yards per play margin I've got there on Pick Six Previews Twitter. Every Tuesday, I'm putting out a stats and information package called Pick Six Plus. You want to go check that out, but get all the game lines and projections and all that. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, it's a great follow. Also, wins over currently ranked teams from yesterday. We've mentioned this a couple of different times, but it's now Alabama 4, and nobody's at 3. And then you have Georgia, Indiana, Miami, and Ohio State at 2, and a bunch of teams have wins over currently ranked teams at 1. So the nice nuggets that you throw out there on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, thanks. And with that Alabama, that's 4 this season. That was 4 weeks in a row. They became the first SEC team of all time to go win 4 straight ranked wins in 4 games. So incredible run to rally after that opening loss to Florida State for Alabama. Ty Simpson playing perfect football at quarterback. You wonder, though, how do they have much gas left in the tank? It's been an emotional 4-week run, beating Georgia between the hedges, and then revenge against Vandy, and then the Tennessee game. Missouri was a nail-biter. You got to go into a snake pit, too, over there in South Carolina. So, and they desperately need a win at Carolina. So you wonder about Alabama. I think they'll be fine, but to do 5 in a row like that is incredible.
Yeah, it would be in South Carolina. Boy, after a lot of pub in the offseason, the way they ended, even talk about the college football playoff the way they ended last year. But, yeah, they're due for one. Last question. I know you're a Heisman voter. I am, too. I know we're not supposed to discuss who we'll vote for, but it's way too early to say that, but at least we can discuss it. Who to you is the most surprising who could be in New York?
The most surprising, I think you'd have to look at Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. He did really well at Cal last year, but that was something where most of the voters, most of the nation wasn't paying attention. I love my 2 a.m. window on Friday and Saturday nights watching these West Coast teams here. And I remember Mendoza last year, he put up some nice stats, but I didn't know how it translated to Indiana, so he's really surprising me. Ty Simpson also, he's surprising in the sense that he's a fifth-year guy at Alabama. He lost several quarterback battles over the years. He emerged from this one, and he's playing really well. Those might be the top 2 if you look at the leaderboard right now. But like you, I try and keep an open mind all the way until mid or late November, and then really look at the whole season as a whole. So yeah. I'm wide open right now.
Me too. Brett, thank you very much. Great stuff. Thanks for being a part of the show. Good luck with what you put out every day, every week with Pick Six Previews.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
He was great to have on. We were leading up to the season. Also, from 2014 through 2024, a preview magazine named number one most accurate. And, of course, we'll see how 25 plays out to see how accurate it is with even some of the surprises here in 2025. When we come back, Shahan Jararaja, CBS Sports, around the corner. 45 minutes or so, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar. There's some postseason to get to and some other stories, too. And John McClain, a little bit around 5 o'clock. And then, of course, all of what we put at the end, including Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. That's okay. We'll do Marco's here anyway. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock owns 5 locations in the Waco area. Marco's Pizza with the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Go online to order a pizza on your way home and pick it up, or they'll deliver it to you as well. I usually I think a couple of times during football season on a Saturday night, if I'm not going to cook something or I had not already cooked something the night before, I will order Marco's Pizza, and pizza lovers get it. I love the large all-meat pizza. I have now tried the regular crust, not just the thin crust. It's just really, really good. They have wings and salads and sandwiches and soft drinks, too, if you want that, and even a couple of sweet things to hit that sweet tooth that you have. Go online, marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it.
I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
No car payments for 90 days when you bring your auto loan home to Genco. Get 4.79% for 48 months and make no payments until 2026. Plus, get entered to win 3 months of no car payments. Bring your auto loan home to Genco. Lower your interest rate, save money, and no payments until 2026. For details, go to GencoFCU.org.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Sean Jararaja, CBS Sports, joins us, national college football columnist and more on 365 Sports Tuesdays in the 4 o'clock hour. I wanted to start with this, Shahan. I saw where Todd Furman, college football parity is great until we get USF and Georgia Tech in the first round and nobody watches. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm an elitist, but the ratings won't lie. I don't give a damn about the ratings. How about you? I want to see who deserves to be there and watch him play.
Yeah, I don't know where we reached this kind of place of talking about ratings and television and networks and all this stuff. And I understand I technically work for one of these networks, but who cares? Like I don't know. I watch a whole lot of football that probably a lot of people don't watch. And, the funny thing about it is as well is I think that we have gotten a little I don't know exactly the right word, but I feel like we've started to forget how college football fans are formed. I mean, the reality of the situation is this. I didn't grow up in college football the way that some people did. And so for me, the thing that drew me into the sport was the fact that Baylor played relevant games and had big time moments when I was there. You look around the college football landscape, Indiana fans are going to exist in a different way than has ever existed before. I think about some of my colleagues. There are multiple people who were at Florida during their run to national championship games. Like this sport has never just been about the top 5 biggest teams and most powerful brands just having all the attention. It's 136 teams at the major college level. It's so many more at even more local spots. The idea that all of those fans should just kind of acquiesce and let Texas play against LSU and that be the only game ever, like, come on, nobody wants that.
No, and look, I hear this. It's the same argument people make when, say the Rangers and Diamondbacks are in the World Series. Like Dallas and Phoenix are small cities, first of all, but they're like, oh, the networks will be mad. Well, who gives a crap? The 2 best teams are playing. Like, I'm sorry that maybe Burke Magnus won't like his numbers, but again, doesn't affect me at all. I'm the one who pays him anyway.
Well, and on top of that, I'll tell you what, I mean, so obviously I'm in DFW and I grew up in DFW. And here's the thing as well, is that, I mean, this is a top 5 market in the country, right? And this is actually a great example of it, is that more people become long-term fans of a team like the Rangers when the Rangers are good. And so I think that, again, there's obviously value to having years where it's Yankees, Dodgers, or whatever you want to say, but there's a ton of value to fans of a team also believing that their team may have a chance, that there's something to build on. I mean, look right now in the NBA, right? Like the best team in basketball plays in Oklahoma City. They fill that place. They pack that place. People tune in. And so I think that you're almost you're underselling your product if you take 136 teams, if you take 30 franchises and try to say you should only care about 5 of these. It's ultimately at the grassroots level where you build sports fans. The second that you start cutting that, I think the more trouble you're going to be in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Shahan. As a guy who's always followed pro wrestling my whole life, like on a consistent basis, the moment that about 20 years ago when there was competition, it started turning into ratings talk, it just made the discourse that much worse, and it's never left. And I'm afraid college football has now waded into this as well about TV rankings and why should we care. To you guys' point, it seems kind of silly, but man, what a weekend it was, huh? I don't know where to start off with a game, so I'll talk, first about the big firing that took place with Billy Napier. Jay Norvell also let go from Colorado State, but your thoughts on the Gators finally making it official, and now what this means big picture for not only them, but for the rest of the teams out there that are going to be looking for head coaches here.
Yeah, I think that we knew heading into the year, this had a chance to be a very active coaching carousel. And already we have 2 monster jobs in Florida and Penn State opening up. And I don't think they're going to be the last. I think this could be one of the busiest coaching carousels that we've ever had. And the biggest reason is this. There were a lot of programs who did not make moves last year because they wanted to gain some clarity on what the new era of college athletics financials were going to look like. And the House case passes, of course, in time for July 1st. We have a little bit more of that clarity and understanding of what teams have to budget for. And so I think that some of these firings that are happening this year are ultimately ones that are maybe backfills from last season. Now, I think that, they probably weren't going to fire Billy Napier last last season under most circumstances. Jay Norvell, by the way, had an 8-win season last year, the first since 2016 or 17, I believe, at Colorado State. But I think that, you look at a situation like Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, you look at a situation like Deshaun Foster at UCLA, even the situation with how things went for Mike Gundy. I think that there maybe was a little bit of a lead into the season where you're kind of saying, well, let's just see what happens. We don't want to make a move right now. And now a lot of programs and a lot of teams, I think, are going to have to make difficult decisions about whether they want to move in this market. Because here's the reality of the situation as well, is that if there's some jobs that if they had opened last year would have been pretty attractive, that now might be, the 10th most valuable or interesting opening in the 2025 cycle.
Shahan, are athletic directors like Michael Alford at Florida State, Wisconsin, Jay Cohen at Auburn, we kind of know where this is all headed right now. Are they making a mistake by waiting, or do the new rules give them the ability to make that decision after the season, since guys can't jump in the portal right away like they used to?
Well, I think that the portal piece is probably not that huge a deal. I mean, the reality is that a lot of these players, either one, have already played 4 games, so you're not necessarily gaining a whole lot by entering the portal. You can't redshirt or anything like that. Second, I mean, there are numerous of these players who either are playing for the NFL or second are potentially going to cost themselves a significant amount of money if they don't decide to play through the rest of the season. Now, every player has to make the decision that's right for them, but those are factors certainly to take into account. I mean, I think that there's kind of a couple different ways to approach this, right? Because I think that that if you know that you want to let go of a coach, if you know it's over and you want to start your process, I think that there's some validity to making this decision mid-season. But I think that also, I mean, if you are Wisconsin, if you are Florida State, I mean, the idea of paying for Florida State a $50 million buyout or for Wisconsin a $25 million buyout, I think that these athletic directors and these programs are just frankly not in a huge rush to do it because they want to figure out if there's any way that they can not have to do this. I mean, especially when you talk about Wisconsin. I mean, McIntosh, the athletic director over there, is very close with Luke Fickell. His tenure has kind of been defined by hiring him. He wants this to work. He wants Luke Fickell to come up with an excuse that's good enough to keep him. And I think that, at Florida State as well, I mean, it's been very up and down, of course, but I think that Michael Alford also doesn't want to have to make a quick decision that's going to set this athletic department back. So I think that to a large extent, they're kind of like, look, we obviously might be pushed into doing this at some point, but we don't want to rush into it, and we don't necessarily think that the timing of now makes a huge difference versus the end of the year.
All right, Shahan, you mentioned how you got involved in football with Baylor, playing relevant games. That game Saturday had so many delays that eventually they just knocked it off network television. I had to watch it online. I didn't watch it much, got to be honest with you. What would you do if you were Mack Rhodes, and what is the barometer on Dave Aranda in your opinion?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question and such a difficult one, I think, too. I've been obviously talking to a lot of friends about it from my Baylor days. And I mean, look, there's a reason that I brought up one thing, which is, do you want to get involved in the 2025 coaching carousel? I think it's a very legitimate question because when you look across the landscape right now at the pool of candidates, it's not an especially great one. Now, I think you have a great candidate in Eric Morris at North Texas. There are guys like Jeff Traylor and G.J. Kinney who have been legacy candidates, but neither, by the way, is having a particularly good season in 2025. And so I think that, one, you have to consider, is there a guy that you clearly want to go out and get instead? And if not, what does that mean for your situation? Two, if you enter this market, I think that Baylor would be an attractive job, but there are ones that are open right now and also more that are going to open in the coming months potentially that potentially outflank you, And so I think that the question is, do you want to get involved in this particular cycle with Baylor? The third thing as well is that, I mean, it's sort of a balance that you have to find also, because you do have a historically great recruiting class locked up right now. You do have a lot of assistant coaches that you feel really good about. You do have some players on campus that you want to keep. So I think that Mac Rhodes, I'm sure, is in a similar sort of situation as what I mentioned with Wisconsin and Florida State, where I think that it would make his job a whole lot easier if they had a decent end to the year and didn't have to make a move at this time. But I mean, I think that TCU game, and I'd even point before that to the crowd and the support for the Kansas State game a couple weeks before that. I mean, these are things that just cannot happen at a program like Baylor that's very proud, that has a lot of great players come through, that's had recent success. This was supposed to be a year where they were contending for the conference. Obviously, they failed to do it to this point. So I think that for me, I would still lean against getting rid of him because of the context of the candidates. But I mean, again, if they have a really poor end of the season, which absolutely is on the table with how difficult the end of their schedule is in November, I mean, you might have to ask some very difficult questions.
I'm sorry, you mentioned Kansas State. I know they won that game, but they have been very poor at home. I said this last week prior to TCU. I didn't expect them to beat TCU. Both of them are like just above average, if not even just average. That if they didn't win that game in UCF, one of the smaller brands, honestly, right now in the Big 12 is your homecoming game, will they have 25,000 people in that stadium?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? And you've mentioned the home struggles, and I think that what becomes difficult. I mean, I was texting again a friend about it just as a grad and as a fan. Like, I was just like, man, it's getting a little tiring watching some of these same issues over and over again, year in and year out, right? The slow starts have been a consistent theme. The lack of killer instinct at the end of games has been a consistent theme. I think that struggling to play complementary football is something that I've talked about with some people. Like, it's just over and over again. And by the way, I don't think that it's a coincidence that people are getting very frustrated with the defense, which right now rates amongst the worst in the power conferences, despite having a defensive head coach. And by the way, this is like the third or fourth year in a row that they've had a poor defense. So I do understand. Like, I mean, if you're a fan right now, like, there's not a whole lot of great reasons necessarily to come out to these games. There are obviously some great players. There are obviously some great moments. I think that, Sawyer Robertson, Michael Trigg, Bryson Washington, like, these guys deserve your support. But I also understand that when you are having to ask fans to come out, a couple hours away, especially for an 11 a.m. game, like, it's just not as easy a sell as it really should be with a roster this good.
Shahan, is Arizona State, BYU, who's your new favorite in the Big 12 since Tech lost, or is it still Tech?
It's still Tech, but the door is open. I think that Tech at a certain point looks like they were maybe an unbeatable head above the rest of the conference sort of favorite, and I think they will still ultimately win. But I think that for me, I mean, BYU is that other team that I think right now that you probably can pencil at least very close to the edge of the Big 12 title game. They're the only undefeated left. They had a great big win against Utah this past weekend. They also, outside of going to Texas Tech, have a pretty manageable schedule overall. Arizona State will have a chance to be there, but they are a 2-loss team at this point. Utah, similar deal. I think good situation, but they're going to have losses to probably the two top contenders in Texas Tech and BYU. So I think for right now, Texas Tech is still my favorite, and BYU is kind of the 1B there.
When it comes to the SEC this weekend, they've got the three biggest games on paper as far as the rankings go. But what are your thoughts just kind of how that race has developed? I mean, we buried Alabama after week 1, and now they're the favorite here like 8 weeks later. And who are they going to play in the championship game, if in fact you even believe they get there? I mean, an equally exciting race, I would say, in the Southeastern Conference as compared to the Big 12.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's pretty consistent of a Gus Malzahn team to go out there, beat Alabama, and do absolutely nothing else of note for the rest of the year. But it is interesting, right? Because Texas A&M still undefeated at this point. They're number 3 in the country, but also certainly not a perfect team. Alabama has looked really, really good since that week 1 loss, but they still did have that week 1 loss. That gives you some pause when it comes to them. And I think that everybody, I mean, Ole Miss is still a team that I like, but I really would have liked for them to have beaten Georgia. I think Georgia's defense just does not look like a Georgia defense that we've come to expect. Everybody right now is pretty dang flawed. And that makes for a really exciting race, I think. If I had to pick right now, I mean, I think that it does end up being Alabama winning the SEC. And I mean, with the way that their schedule is shaking out right now, Texas A&M is going to have a very legitimate chance to be the other team in that game. Of course, they go on the road to play Texas on November 29th. I'm excited for that game, for the return game, the first in Austin since 2011. But, again, like, it's not off the table that you see a team like Georgia get in, that you see a team like Oklahoma maybe get in, that you see a team. I mean, we'll kind of see what happens with Vanderbilt. I mean, they're a top 10 team right now, but if you asked me to guess right now, I think it ends up being Alabama over Texas A&M in the SEC title game.
Sean, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. And oh, by the way, he had a note that he's the one, has history that you made up, the SEC hypothetical win phrase. Is that correct?
I mean, I was just going through social media, and I felt like it's blown up over the past year or so. And as far as I can tell, I'm the first one who kind of dropped the SEC hypothetical win thing. So, again, I don't want to take too much credit, but it is kind of fun to see how much that's blown up in the past year.
Yeah.
They get a lot of hypothetical wins.
A lot. They're undefeated, some would say.
They're dominant hypothetically.
They get a lot of wins, but they also get a few of those added into the mix. No doubt about it. Shahan, have a great week. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Shahan Jararaja, CBS Sports, with us on Tuesdays. Ari Temkin, normally on Tuesdays, will probably be either Thursday or Friday of this week. When we come back, we've got a lot more to get to when it comes to college football. Craig's off the radar around the corner. John McClain at 5 and more. And this is 365 Sports. I dropped by Waco Custom Marketplace on Friday of last week after I called him. I have a deep freeze on my back deck, and usually it's got just like a lot of different things. For example, sausage, hamburger meat, whatever else you can imagine, is shrimp. And then there's some steaks. I got a box that's about this long, probably about this deep, and it usually has bone-in or ribeyes or even some really nice fillets. And I looked in it over the weekend. I'm like, oh, I'm down to just one. So I called them on Friday, went by there, picked it up, and filled that box back up. They don't take long. I am very fortunate. I'll call maybe at 9:30 or 10, pick up a box of steaks that are pre-cut, all in their own wrappers, so I can put them in the freezer separately and ready to go. Cannot wait to have a delicious ribeye that I cook sometime this weekend. And they have more than that. They have what you need when it comes to tailgating, tri-tip and brisket, sausage, chicken, and more. And then if you want something special, they've got lobster tail, live tank, plus they had tiger shrimp, by the way, inside their seafood area when I walked in the door. Cold beer and wine, all the marinades and the seasonings you need for tailgating or for your own cooking. It is a special place at a fresh baked bakery that also goes with what they have when it comes to all the chicken, beef, and pork and fish you need. So it's great. The Bauer family is great. Brian was upset Saturday. He texted me during that Baylor game, frustrated, but he's going to be okay. And their food is better than okay at Waco Custom Marketplace.
0% for 72 months on all 2025 Ram 1500 trucks during the Drive into Fall event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Check out a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $16,000 off, or a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $12,000 off, and both at 3.9 for 72 months. And if you drive a Ford, Toyota, or GM, get an extra $1,500 bonus cash. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Over 30% of adults struggle with chronic foot and joint pain, and many face mobility limitations as they age. But a revolutionary Comfort First slipper has taken the wellness world by storm. Try Cloud Slides and feel you are walking on the clouds. cloud slides.
Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. Download the app today and sign up with promo code SPORTS365 to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code SPORTS365. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog. Make picks. Win money. Must be 18 and up. 19 and up in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 and up, and in Colorado for some games, 21 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports. As I mentioned earlier, we had that audio from Brett Yormark about the question if they could have the same amount of automatic qualifiers as the other Power 4 schools. Would he like it? Of course he would. And Jim Phillips also, as I mentioned, they would say, where do we sign? But there were some other notes that he had today. Jerome Jordan, who covers BYU, on some of his comments, and you guys pick it off as you want it. I can keep going down the list. He supports the SCORE Act, supports the enforcement of new NIL deal evaluations. 12-team college football playoff continues to be the model, expects multiple bids this year, highlights quality Olympic sports, says the Big 12 will be the mostly widely distributed product in college hoops, citing their TV partners. Women's hoops documentary being worked on, expansion in favor if the economics and access make sense. And that's the only way you should answer that. 10% of the Big 12 student athletes are international students, wants to build the brand across the globe to monetize international media rights. Anything in there at all perk your attention?
Just leave that up, Brandon, by the way.
Yeah. Of course he supports the SCORE Act. All the conference commissioners and the university presidents support the SCORE Act because they don't have a better idea than how to fix the things that are wrong than to have the government force them as far back into the old system as they can with a bunch of stuff that's already been determined by multiple courts over and over and over again to be illegal and unconstitutional. So, of course, he supports the SCORE Act. The SCORE Act just sends it back. If you read the act, it is basically trying to get it as close back to the old system as they possibly can and gives no agency to the student athletes, which we already know doesn't work. So, of course, he supports it because that's the only answer all these people have is to ask a group that can't even open itself up to do the things that a government's supposed to do right now to fix their problems. It's the dumbest cycle of monkeys humping a doorknob when it comes to functionally getting things done I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I mean, is Cody Campbell for or anti-SCORE Act?
He's mostly anti the SCORE Act.
Yeah,
he supports his passage with caveats, but those caveats almost make it the SAFE Act, which is the other one. Maria Cantwell today said there's no way that it's getting through the Senate.
I saw
Which one, the SAFE Act or
neither one. But the SCORE Act's not getting through. The SAFE Act's not getting through because the SCORE Act won't get through. So we're back where we are, and there's no way it's going to happen before the election next year.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it would. And just for those who are maybe like me and not knee deep into the politics and legal side of things, the SCORE Act, and I'll use the AI overview here to just summarize it for me. So tell me if if it's wrong on anything, because I don't know any, but it seeks to standardize NIL regulations, create a national uniform set of rules for NIL deals, replacing the current patchwork of differing state laws. I think we'd all be for that. Preserve academic identity, prohibit student athletes from being classified as employees, which supports the NCAA's position and the view of college sports as an educational endeavor. I really do think, and I know we've had commenters who have pushed back, especially when the beginning of all this was happening. I'm like, well, college degrees don't mean as much as they used to, and this and that. And I just find that to be the most short-sighted, just stupid-ass comments that we ever got. Was like, so I do think that, yes, it's turning into pro football, but like, if you can keep an educational component to it, I think that's really important, because no matter if it is the new NFL or not, and guys are making way more money than they were before, there's still a lot of people that need a degree. Like,
not everyone is.
Well, but I'm saying, but like, if they do, like, you know, the route that they're going, I mean, pretty soon players are going to be millionaires, not just the quarterbacks, but like not just the star players. Like, the money's going to keep raising and raising to the point of like, oh, you don't want to give us any more than you're already giving us? Back to court we go. And that's the game that we'll play. So I just think, for it to be college sports, if there's no academic component to it, like I've seen some people like, let's just break it away and then it's not college football. It's not college football. There's no college. There's not college football. But it does want to preserve academic identity, although people kind of disagree on how much that matters in the big picture. Protect athletes by mandating universities provide benefits such as mental health, degree completion assistance, and extended medical benefits after graduation. Regulate agents, capping agent fees at 5%, and having a bill that includes provisions for agent oversight. And then 2 more, maintain university requirements requiring universities with high athletic revenue to maintain a minimum of 16 varsity sports. And then the SCORE Act would be the one that also is looking for that antitrust protection as well. So it's got good, it's like, I think things that people care about, but it's not like
but the way it's written, it's basically yanking it back to where it used to be. I mean, like, while giving some stipulations that you can pay athletes. Now, look, the thing that that both sides have to come to, which is why collective bargaining, which is also going to be really tough to figure out, because of, you know, if I'm in a pipe fitters union, it's because I'm a pipe fitter. Like, you know, I'm only a college football player for 5 years. I'm not like, I don't join the pipe fitters union because I've got a 5-year hitch as a pipe fitter or a welder, right? That's because it's my career, and I want to make sure that my long-term career that I train for, I'm protected with. So Amanda Kristovich is doing a lot of great work on this, by the way, kind of explaining it all. But
front office sports.
Thank you. But what everybody needs to come to is the old system doesn't work. The current system doesn't work. The answer is somewhere in the middle, and yanking it all the way back to the other way by giving minor concessions is only going to wind up getting us back exactly like we're just walking in a circle over and over and over again. And so the SCORE Act just keeps us, you know, walking in the circle and not in a straight line. That's all it does.
There's a lot out there. It just seems like we go in circles with it. I got to tell you, I didn't zone out with all of it because it all makes sense. It's important. But it is amazing to me that there's just so much. It's not chaos, but it's close to it in governing and trying to figure out what to do in the future.
It's self-inflicted chaos. Like, it's all a result of getting your way and being as selfish and greedy as possible for decades. This is like the reverberations from is people taking advantage of rules the way that they were, and now they can't quite do that, and so they're looking for every way where they still can do that, or what's a new avenue I can take where I can get back what I'm losing or whatever. Like, it's just, it's where we found ourselves because of the decades of greed and lack of athlete empowerment that was granted these guys and gals for so long.
And look, they have trouble coming up with new answers because they always had just two answers. How do we get more money? We ask a rich guy for it here at the school that likes the school, or, we all get together and we go to the TV networks and renegotiate a deal. That's the only ways they know how to make money. And not that there's an abundance more ways to make money, but they don't they were forced to now we have to pay other people. And instead of admitting that okay, well, hey, we had a good run, guys. We had a great run. It was great. Remember when we got all this free athletes? Yeah, that was never going to last. Instead of doing that, they've just been we've got to get it back. We've got to get it back. Well, it's a power struggle that you're going to constantly lose when you try to swing a pendulum one way or the other. You're always going to lose if you're only pushing in one direction.
Yeah, it just feels like instead of realizing that the pendulum's now in the middle, they're still trying to force it to the left or to the right and hoping that they can find a way to do that. And that's just not going to happen. So anyways, that goes on. And I've never really been I know people love to trumpet Cody Campbell and his ideas and everything, but I've never been a believer that they had much of a chance of actually succeeding, because I don't see any reason whatsoever why Greg Sankey, for just use him as an example, would go sure, I'll disband or basically take this conference that I've cultivated into the perfect regional conference in this day and age with all of these massive brands, and I'll just fold them back in with everybody else and we'll all just make the same money. Sure. Yeah, he's going to go right for that. He's definitely not going to have a problem with that whatsoever. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Yeah, Texas and Oklahoma got them. So they're not. There's back with all the Big 12 schools again. Everybody's all equal. I just never felt like that was all that realistic. And kudos to him for trying to fight for that, because maybe it would be better for the group as a whole. But the problem is the group doesn't want to be a group altogether. Mm-hmm. Most of the teams don't want to be in the group. They want to be by themselves or with other people just like them in their country club. They don't care about Kent State, nor should they have to if they're Ohio State. But I don't know that Cody Campbell's ideas really, with the TV part of it, stand much of a chance or stood much of a chance, but we'll see how these continue to play out. The last one about the international students, 10% of Big 12 student athletes are international. He wants to build a brand across the globe to monetize international media rights. All right. So we heard the idea about playing baseball and basketball in Mexico, right? And those have been projects that have kind of been delayed or put to the side or whatever. And I was open-minded enough to that of okay, I don't think it's going to really do you a whole lot of good in the long run. And I am of the belief that this whole international pursuit is going to take years and years to actually cultivate something of substance from it. But okay, cool. I'll hear you out and hear your ideas on it. And we've seen games taken overseas and all that. He's from the WWE side of the aisle. He didn't work for them, but he works with the same types of people that now own WWE, TKO, Endeavor, that whole group. They are doing nothing but whoring out everything to the international markets because they made all the money they could make in America, basically. And they're like, where can we make more money, though? Well, we'll just take all of our shows overseas all the time. So they went from a couple times a year being in Europe or in Japan or something to now it's anytime you turn on, it's 50-50 that they're somewhere outside of the US. It's all the time now. It's constant. They are all over the world and it's fine. But I don't see that working for college football. It's one thing when you have a bunch of people from all over the world and fans from all over the world. The Big 12 doesn't have fans all over the world, and to create fans is going to take time that I don't think Brett Yormark's going to be around for. So I get it from the standpoint of trying to create new windows, new money, new opportunities, but I think it sucks for the product. I don't want to see Iowa State, K-State basketball in freaking Tijuana or something. I just don't think anybody has any interest in that, but I know that's where the money is untouched right now, is internationally. So we've tapped out what we can do at home. Where can we go find more? Oh, well, we'll go international. I just don't think there's really a college sports market internationally.
No, I think that there are some cool things that you could do as one-offs of doing that, but I don't think you're going to have a lasting legacy of making a ton of money by playing. Let's just say they kept it to Europe because basketball is very popular over there. And football's starting to gain in popularity, but we'll just keep it to basketball since that's kind of, I think, he's a basketball media is kind of what he was talking about here. Well, yeah, there's a lot of great international basketball talent. We would love, they're starting to come over and play in college now, and they weren't before, and that's good. let's, as an American basketball society, maybe get more into there so that you create some fans of American college basketball there. That to me should be like a very tiny drop in the bucket of what you're trying to do. I think that you should, again, one-off. Go play a couple games in London, to kick off the season, have a tournament over there or something. Great. Just like the Maui gym or whatever you've got. Do that in London, but don't spend a lot of time on it because I don't think it's very fruitful.
Yeah, I don't think that even if you do that it makes a difference if it's Kansas or if it's Iowa State or if it's West Virginia or whoever. I don't think that they're going to be all that wiser to it. This isn't like bringing NFL teams over.
No, I think it just gets them excited about the product.
Yeah,
maybe. This was cool. I maybe want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so, but I just think that those are such 20-year plans that it does nothing to the meantime, except for maybe you make a couple quick bucks, but you're not going to make a lot of money by doing it. And ultimately, you're just going to piss off your fans because they want to play in Ames. They want to play in Manhattan. They don't want to play in London. So I've been open-minded to taking games overseas and all that, and I understand why not just the Big 12, but I mean Florida State and Georgia Tech. That kickoff classic's not exclusive to them. That's college football as a whole, but I'm just not a believer that it's going to make a world of difference for the Big 12. I think it's just the only thing you can think of to try and possibly create something that not everybody else has already taken full advantage of.
Alan Makeda, Saudi Prince just entered the chat.
Well, I actually saw somebody, and I don't like I think Brett Yormark's done some good things. I haven't agreed with everything, but I also am of the belief more and more here as of late, especially as I've seen how some of his compadres have been doing business and kind of what we're talking about, like international stuff, is somebody replied to one of the comments coming out of this of Big 12 championship sponsored by Riyadh season coming your way in Saudi Arabia. And you know what? I would not put it past him. I know that sounds crazy, but I, honest to God, would not put that past Brett Yormark if they said, we will give you $50 million for this game. And you know what? A lot of people would probably say, well, shoot, go take $50 million. But I think that should be non-starter for American college football. Okay. But with him in charge, I do fear that's the kind of thing they're going to have to pursue because there's nothing domestically that's going to suddenly unlock outside of a bunch of teams winning national championships out of nowhere that's really going to create the money. So the only way you can really go and get it is to hope that you just hit a jackpot and overseas somewhere. But I think the odds of that are so incredibly low.
Well, we talked about it a little bit last week about the Holiday Bowl going and having a contact.
Yeah, it's not exclusive to the Big 12 by any means.
The Holiday Bowl went and talked about having that game in Saudi Arabia and ultimately decided not to do it, which this is how much Saudi Arabia has. All the Holiday Bowl had to do to think that's not a good idea before you get into the geopolitical realm of it is look at the Bahamas Bowl. You know how cheap it is generally on a vacation to get to the Bahamas? As vacations go, it's a pretty cheap vacation. Pretty much every company in the world has some sort of great deal to go to the Bahamas. And who goes to the Bahamas Bowl? No one.
Yeah.
No one goes. So if they're not going to go to the Bahamas, they're sure as hell not going to go to Riyadh to watch the Holiday Bowl. And the fans there are not going to go and watch it unless the king makes them do it.
Well, here's the thing. And if your wife wants to go, well, she will be dressed head to toe, pretty much fully covered the entire time. And the events that I've seen over in Saudi Arabia from the WWE standpoint, I don't think I've seen a woman in the crowd yet. It's all dudes that are in these crowds, all of them in the background. You can watch some of these boxing matches as well. So yeah, it's definitely it's definitely an outlet to go and try to prize some money that you otherwise might not have an opportunity to get dealing in some business with the Saudi princes or whoever. And I understand Brett Yormark's trying to do what's best for the league, but I just am at the point where and I see most people are understanding of just because you may like the guy or just because you think he's doing good doesn't mean everything makes sense and everything's a good idea. And I think even tempting the discussion of the international stuff, the ADs and stuff need to be very mindful of kind of who they are and what they're about and all of that. Because if you're just chasing money all the time, then Big 12 championship in Riyadh is actually not that far off of an idea. If that's all you're after is just chasing the money, then go host it because they'll give you $50 million for it or whatever. But I just don't see the demand for international college sports, even at the highest level, much less the not highest level all the time.
I got to tell you guys, I'm not the smartest brick in the wall, but and it's all great conversation, and both of you have put a lot into it. But I the score act and then all of this, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I love what you guys were saying. I just enjoyed the conversation. I didn't have anything to add to it,
and look, I know we don't like to talk about this stuff all the time. I think it's important to talk about to let fans know.
No, I understand it. That's what I was saying. No.
Where your money as a fan is going.
Yep.
They need to know that.
That's why I brought it up. I just sat there and you guys.
They might decide to take a game that you wanted to go to and send it to Saudi Arabia where no one gives a crap.
Or not even there, to Kingston, Jamaica, or wherever the hell.
Hey, that's a great heavyweight fight there.
I mean, pretty soon, most of the American media will probably be in the Prince's pockets anyways, and some of them already are. But yeah, I think that's like a step farther than anything that's been discussed at this point. But I saw that comment, and the way I've kind of been talking lately about Yormark, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was something they approached with at some point in time. It was like, so what would y'all think? I think he's basically made it clear anything's on the table that makes them money, and they've told him no on a lot of different things so far. I just think when we start to talk about these international games, which is where we started here, one-off, hey, basketball in Mexico City or baseball, something like that, I think there's some value to that. But I think anybody that's under the illusion, which is probably nobody but Brett Yormark, that there's actually real money to be made where you're not basically offering the championship game for a prince's ransom, I don't really know what good it's doing you when you could have just played that game in Manhattan, Kansas.
I think he was directed. I don't know if it was the ADs or presidents or whatever, whether it ever gets to that point. When he took over, one of the things he had to do is find money. Doesn't mean you got to find it in the worst places where you're going to hurt the brand instead of helping it. But I think that's one of the things that he was told, go find. He's found some money in places we didn't even know existed, but we also know where it does exist and don't want to be a part of it. All right.
No, and I know he's got to do his job, and I don't fault him at all for that. I just think that at some point you get to a point where I go, I'm not cool with those ideas. I don't think that works best. I don't think that's good for the sport.
And then there's some things we may not think is good. It might be. We'll see that, but the good conversation. When we come back, Craig Smoak off the radar, around the corner, Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. And then Paul's Top 5. Also, spin the wheel, quizzes, and the poll results. This is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center in between Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco. I was there Saturday. Played golf Saturday morning, had that hole-in-one. I was all fired up. And then I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go by Don's and go find some cigars, just a chunk of them. And I bought like 8 of them. Most of them were Churchill length, and most of the La Galera was one. Macanudo was one. I got a couple of Rocky Patel Torpedo Edge Light. That's not a Churchill length, but I got 8 or 10 cigars for the next few times I play around a golfer. Maybe what Jennifer delivers to have smoke a cigar for being a grandfather, and that's also a possibility. They also helped fix my torch lighter that for whatever reason just wasn't working. I had drained it with whatever was you put in it and then filled it back up, and it wasn't working. They found a bubble or some kind of pocket in their air, and then they fixed that for me. They can do that for your torch lighter as well. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, Cheyenne and Joshua in the Townwest Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
No car payments for 90 days when you bring your auto loan home to Genco. Get 4.79% for 48 months and make no payments until 2026. Plus, get entered to win 3 months of no car payments. Bring your auto loan home to Genco. Lower your interest rate, save money, and no payments until 2026. Special is subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. Visit GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. We'd appreciate that. Here, talking a little bit about a variety of different things. And we'll start off with a massive baseball moment last night as the Toronto Blue Jays defeated Seattle in Game 7 of the 2025 American League Championship Series 4-3, and it was George Springer, a go-ahead 3-run homer in the bottom of the 7th inning that helped propel the Jays to the all-or-nothing win here, where it's win or go home, baby. And Seattle, the big dumper, Cal Raleigh, a great story all year long. Liked everything about him except for the obscenely ugly Nintendo patches on their uniforms. But beyond that, really enjoyed watching Seattle this year. But that version of the Mariners is over. They are done, and the Blue Jays now move on to face the LA Dodgers in the World Series starting later on this week. Seattle got the lead early in this game, but then it was that big homer later on, and Dumper did had a homer in I believe it was the 5th inning of this game. Man, he's incredible to watch, and I really thought that whoever is going to be fed to the Dodgers basically is kind of where my mind is. But I really was hoping Seattle, just because they're not used to this at all, and it's never been a moment that they've been able to experience in their fan base's history, and it just seemed like it would be a cool story. But alas, it is the Blue Jays, and congrats to the Blue Jays, not taking anything away from them. A hell of a win. I'm just surprised we're talking about it, because I really did feel like the Mariners were kind of that team of destiny this year, and instead it will be Toronto, LA. So big rally in the 7th, and George Springer, the hero. And your thoughts on that win, but also now Dodgers and Blue Jays.
I actually had to go back and realize I did not know. I just, for some reason, I guess because of the Buhner and Griffey and all that, somehow they slipped into it. They had that team that 116 wins, but yeah, never been there. We saw the Rangers finally get to one back 10, 15 years ago. Teams that have been around long, they've been around long enough now. What are they, a franchise that was born in the 70s? Is that right? When they were expansion franchise.
Seattle, yeah, both of them were.
Yeah.
So they're almost on AARP at this point. They're not
absolutely.
they're not that young.
And Toronto had that Joe Carter team and a few others, but man, it's good that one of them's going. But I was hoping Seattle would go.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, big Cal Raleigh fan, obviously, because he's an FSU guy. But I really do like Julio Rodriguez. Randy Arozarena. I love Randy Arozarena. Like, he has so much fun playing baseball.
Yeah.
We've got a World Baseball Classic coming. I can't wait for Randy Arozarena to play in that again. Nobody had more fun in the World Baseball Classic, I think, than Randy Arozarena. But
isn't that Adolis's boy?
Yeah,
like they're best buddies from Cuba or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm all excited about that. The Dodgers are going to be tough to beat by anybody. The Blue Jays, especially if Bo Bichette comes back and they get that depth back, have a lineup that can contend. And George Springer is a monster in the postseason. He's an absolute monster in the postseason. So it's going to be formidable. But the Dodgers are just so damn good, and they don't have any holes, and everybody's healthy at the same time. And everybody thought Ohtani was in a slump, and then he had like the greatest game you could possibly ever have. He's like Bugs Bunny in that the old cartoon, where just crushing home runs and striking guys out. I don't know, but good luck to the Blue Jays. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a really fun guy to watch. So he's been absolutely on a tear. They've got some interesting things going on there, and look, and the networks will be happy. It's an international series. Toronto's a big, gigantic spot, and LA is huge.
Thank God the TV ratings executives are happy.
At least we don't have to hear that. We don't have to hear people bemoaning that this year.
Dude, what happened to us as a country where we started? I mean, I get it's just kind of, I guess, the capitalist side of things or whatever, but why are there I don't know. I just don't know why we would care so much about other people making money. But here we are. We talk about these sports contracts and these TV ratings and rich movie stars and all of that. It is an obsession. So I'm kind of just answering my own question there. But I don't know. I think we're all just put off by the way that was framed, the whole college football TV ratings thing that went viral, where it's just like, God, this is gross. Like, this isn't even like a cool topic. This is just like the fact that your brain goes to, well, this team totally did everything right and deserved it and made their way here and earned every bit of it. But God, we have to watch them rather than the popular team who didn't do any of those things. Yeah. We got to change the sport. Like, what kind of just backwards ass logic is that? Like, what is wrong with us? I don't know.
And
Sorry.
somebody no, it's right. I mean, you guys have, but we have more ratings and viewers, or we have a higher, whatever it was, revenue, whatever. It's ridiculous. We just wins and losses. You mentioned earlier in the show, it was brought up about Phoenix and Dallas are not major market. It's not that they were major markets, but their size is different than how they're perceived. Isn't that right?
Yes. It is. Yeah. They're major markets, but like when it was the Diamondbacks and Rangers, there was that argument of like, oh, well, this could be a bummer for ratings. And you're like, have you guys been to either airport? Yeah. They're friggin' huge.
Yeah, DFW's massive.
Wanted to clarify that from earlier.
Yeah. And it didn't affect my whatever the rating was. I'll never know and never care because I enjoyed the World Series regardless of what the ratings were. So I didn't mean to get off on a tangent. Yeah. I find that whole conversation to just be a real big indictment on us as people and as fans, that's where brains go is, well, what about the TV ratings? It's crazy. Blue Jays will not be looking for their first World Series title. They've already won one. Beating the Braves in 92 and then won the second one in 93. So hoping to add a third World Series, whereas the Dodgers, the drill there. They have been very successful, especially of late. And so the Dodgers, with the greatest baseball player perhaps of all time, now looking to add to their totals and to his total. And so that would be back-to-back if they're able to accomplish that for LA. So there you go. Dodgers and Blue Jays coming your way. World Series starting up on was it
Friday?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, Friday. That will get underway. Game on Saturday, then back on Monday and Tuesday for the first 4 games, and we'll see if it goes anywhere else but there.
In 92 and 93, growing up in Fort Myers, Florida, it was funny to watch because it was Braves country because there were no Marlins yet. So it's still Braves country. And so people were mad, but then you do walk around South Florida and there's a lot of Canadians. So I remember that. And then Philly people too. It's the same. It was really weird.
Yeah. So meanwhile,
spring training camps made a lot to do with that too, Craig.
Meanwhile, elsewhere, a couple of games last night in the NFL as Monday Night Football rolled on along. Seattle beating Houston 27-19. The Texans just seem sort of there. Not much to write home about with them. And then the Lions over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-9. Great win for Detroit over Baker and company. So had the old Monday Night Football doubleheader, which I enjoy. I don't know if I would love it if it was every week, but I do like it in spurts. I do like it occasionally, and I don't think I would hate it if it was that way all the time, but it's probably more interesting when they do it irregularly. But I did enjoy that doubleheader last night. So anything from either one of those games, I mean, the Lions was a great win.
There was a pick. The Texans had an interception. What's the young man's name from Ohio State, the receiver? He got caught on the side. He shoved on the sideline. Kind of almost
Smith-Njigba.
Yeah, he got face masked, but they can do that if you're an offensive player. That he shoved the receiver or the defensive back into the Stingley into the bench, and then was surrounded. And one of the officials actually got around the bench. He's on the wrong side of the field because he got around him and protected the guy. Did you see that? And Jalen Petrie was there, even with his teammates. He was trying to make sure they didn't do something stupid to draw a foul. But I thought that was a pretty good moment. The guy's last name is Jones. He was a draft pick of the Cowboys, and he's an official in the NFL now. That was a neat picture if you had not seen it.
Yeah, I had not. I watched so much of the baseball game last night. I didn't even turn on the Texans and Seahawks because I watched a lot of the Lions and Bucks, and of course, the bummer coming out of the Bucks game is that Mike Evans, back from a hamstring injury, broke his collarbone on what was. Had he not broken his collarbone, he would have made a very Mike Evans catch. That was ridiculous. But I don't think it's going to. The Bucks are just really good, even without Mike Evans. Although for the majority of the rest of the year, he's not going to be there if at all. But the Lions are fun to watch. It was really
they're getting back into a groove. It seemed like it's extended.
By the way, I remember Jahmyr Gibbs had that 80+ yard run last night. I remember back to all the draft people going, I'm not nuts about his speed. All right, go watch it again.
That didn't age very well for those who thought differently. Meanwhile, should have mentioned along with the World Series, Angels did hire Kurt Suzuki, former catcher, as their new manager. So that was a little bit of a note from baseball. NBA season starting up. I do not care at all. I don't think either one of you do based on your reactions, but that also gets underway officially now.
I'll care eventually, but not today.
Yeah, about 7 months from now when the playoffs start. But it's getting underway. So now we're going to have that full fall schedule ripping on along here the rest of the way. And then, you know what? I think I'll just leave it right there. We got John McClain coming up around the corner. So that's kind of the bulk of what I had anyways today. And there was the rumor that was floating around earlier, and I heard it on Dallas radio, and I was running errands, and I was tuning in for just a second to see what was going on. And Max Crosby of the Raiders was rumored to be interested, according to Trey Wingo, formerly of ESPN, that Max Crosby was being pursued by the Cowboys and that they had already been talking trade packages. And the way that the reporting started up is man, he's going to be in Dallas. You thought this thing was real deal, and now it's basically been poo-pooed all over. And I've seen various Cowboys reporters say there's no discussions. There hasn't been discussions.
I think he very sarcastically, because this is very Max Crosby, followed all the Cowboys on Instagram to troll people.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, good for him.
He followed he's going to be a Cowboy. He's following him on Instagram. And then,
he's a hell of a player, a big name, and so it's going to be lightning rod when the Cowboys are attached to it.
Trey Wingo said, according to sources, the Cowboys have made inquiries with the Raiders about a potential trade for Max Crosby, and that lit everything on fire. And then a few hours later, you had guys like Clarence Hill. The Cowboys have not made any contact with the Raiders about Max Crosby. Doesn't mean they haven't had discussions about possible moves or options, but have not talked to Raiders about Crosby. And I just cannot imagine, are the Raiders trying to get the franchise moved again? Because they suck. And Pete Carroll's probably a 1-year deal at 2 years maximum. Geno stinks. The only thing they have is Max Crosby. If you want to burn the city down, sure, trade him to the Cowboys. That would be brilliant. But I didn't believe it from the jump because that would just absolutely make zero sense whatsoever. That dude is a Raider. Now, I won't put it past them to trade him eventually, but right now it would make absolutely no sense whatsoever, no matter how bad they are. And boy, they are bad. That Pete Carroll's experiment is not going well at all. I don't think he's going to be around very long, but yeah, nothing to the Crosby Cowboy stuff. Obviously, that were to happen, that would be insane news, and he would overnight be like
what
the
is his
top
specialty?
jersey seller.
What is this
Pass
special?
rushing.
Oh,
Yeah.
They had one of those guys.
Here's why they should not do that for Max Crosby. Other than fan wise, I'd love it, but you traded. He already has a contract that you'll be taking on. You could have just done that.
Yep.
And then if you're going to trade for Max Crosby, I doubt that the Raiders are going to say, "Oh, you can get him for a 3rd round pick."
Yeah,
you're good, dude. It's like 2 first rounders
exactly.
to even pick up the phone.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, they're not doing that.
His
there you
value is
go.
the same as Micah Parsons that you just traded.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a few things off the radar, and coming up next, John McClain to talk about that rumor and Monday Night Football and everything else we got on the way.
365 Sports continues in a moment.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Hall of Fame columnist John McClain joins us Tuesdays, most every time, Tuesday in the 5 o'clock hour. He joins us here. John, you know, you've been working on that documentary. You've been heavily involved in that about desegregation, the high school game back in the day, et cetera. Jerry Levias Warren McVeigh saw where he passed away this week, and what an unbelievable story was from San Antonio, Breckenridge, Houston, in the NFL.
I'll tell you, we were looking for Warren McVeigh, and we couldn't find anybody who knew where he was. We called University of Houston. We called San Antonio, his hometown. I went on radio and said, if anybody knows where he is, people gave us a number that he never returned a call. And somebody told me he's probably really sick and doesn't want to be found. Turned out he had diabetes real bad. He had moved to L.A. where somebody in his family was helping take care of him, and he died over the weekend. He was the greatest running back in Prairie View Interscholastic League history. That's the all-black PBIL. Really disappointed we weren't able to get him. It's like Eldridge Dickey was the greatest quarterback, but McVeigh. Of all those great backs, was the best. He had scholarship offers all over the country. He went to the University of Houston to play with Bill Yeoman. He got a scholarship at Houston in '64, 1 year before SMU made Jerry Levias the first black to get a scholarship in the Southwest Conference.
We interviewed him, John, but it's been like 20 years ago. I don't know if anyone had that on tape or not, but I wouldn't still know where that is in the archives. But what a unbelievable player he was at Breckenridge, as you mentioned, back in the day. So the Texans lose last night. Where are they, in your opinion? It seemed like I thought they kind of got their act together, but they're starting to kind of drown underneath that under 500 mark.
The Texans think their offensive line is still pathetic, and we thought everything was better because they beat the Titans and Ravens, two of the worst defenses in the league, and then they get to Seattle and their offensive line gets abused. C.J. Stroud pressured on 17 dropbacks. 3 times he was sacked. And it's just amazing what he goes through. And I don't understand how you can keep changing play callers. The new one, Nick Caley, is awful. How you can keep changing offensive coordinators, play callers, offensive line coaches, and offensive linemen and still be absolutely pathetic. Defense forced 4 turnovers, scored a touchdown. Will Anderson Jr. on a strip sack in the end zone. He scored as many touchdowns as the offense did. And despite all that, they still lost another one-score game. They've lost games now by 5 at L.A. against the Rams, 1 to the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football, 7 at Jacksonville, and now this one is Seattle by 8. But you'll see when they've got a stretch coming up, 49ers, Broncos, and Jaguars in Houston, if they can't keep the Seahawks away from C.J. Stroud, the Broncos lead the league in sacks and have the best defense. I can't imagine what they're going to do to it.
What is D'Amico Ryans in any trouble, or how did the Texans respond to this as they go forward? Just assuming that their offensive play calling doesn't miraculously change you here in the last 11 games of the year.
No, he's not in trouble. He's won 10 games, won a division, won a playoff game the last 2 years. And then he fired Bobby Slowick, coordinator and play caller, hired Nick Caley. Last year when they hired Slowick, who's never called plays, they talked to Clint Kubiak and they talked to Cliff Kingsbury. But both of them would have had to come here with Slowick as the play caller. And, of course, Kingsbury went with Dan Quinn to Washington. Clint Kubiak went to the Saints. They scored over 40 points in their first 2 games, and then everybody got hurt, and they were terrible. So Mike McDonald hired him in Seattle. Clint's going to end up being a head coach, just like Cliff Kingsbury is going to get a second chance. But I'll guarantee you the next play caller that they hire will have experience. When Gary Kubiak came here in 2006, his first 2 defensive coordinators had no experience as calling defenses. And then he hired Wade Phillips, one of the greatest in history, and they won their first division and playoff game and became one of the best teams in the league. So I'll guarantee you that's what's going to happen here. And I tweeted something today. The McNair family should order General Manager Nick Caserio to never hire anybody who's worked for the Patriots as a player, a coach, a scout, executive, hadn't even changed planes at Logan International Airport, and nobody from his college, John Carroll University in Cleveland, they got like 4 coaches who were there. They should make sure they put their foot down and tell him no, 1,000 times no.
John, I'm sure these other 2 will follow up with some Cowboys questions, but Commanders, Cowboys, Dallas just beats them up. And granted, there were some faces missing, in particular in the wide receiving core for Washington. But it seems after a year ago when everything just kind of fell perfectly for them in a way, this year it's been the opposite for Washington, just guys constantly banged up, including Jaden Daniels. Do you see it that way, that it's just like they just don't have the magic of last year. And what do you think kind of the outlook is for the Commanders now at this point in time?
I think Jaden Daniels has not been playing well from the get-go. And injuries, of course, hurt as well. But the Cowboys, they withstood the loss of C.D. Lamb and came back with a bang. As long as Dak Prescott's healthy, the Cowboys are capable now of beating anybody. And that doesn't mean in the playoffs, of course. But I think they're going to compete for a wild card berth. I don't think they would beat Philadelphia for the division, but I don't see Washington as a contender, and certainly not the Giants. It's going to be a two-team race. We've talked about this before. In the last, 5 times that Dak Prescott has started all or most of the games they've been in the playoffs. So the key is keep Dak healthy. And right now he's playing great. They still don't have a winning record, but it looks like they're headed in that direction. And, I'm happy for Jerry Jones because he puts up with so much grief. Nobody wanted Brian Schottenheimer. He's overcome a lot of obstacles, and their running game's better than we all thought it would be.
John, I thought the discourse, I was a little uninspired as a Cowboys fan by the hire. And then when I sat back and thought about it, it's just as good as anybody. No coach that's been there, whether it's a smart hire or not a smart hire, is going to succeed to the level that some others may, because they do have the Jones family block that unless they're willing to change some of the things that they do, the coach is still going to have the same problems that the other coaches have had. And what I've seen from Brian Schottenheimer is his offensive creativity just is leaps and bounds ahead of Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. Now, if they would just quit hiring, it's kind of like what you said about Nick Caserio and people use for the Patriots. The Cowboys like guys that were assistants with them and then got to be head coaches. Eberflus probably not the best hire they could have made, but they still did kind of sabotage him before the season. So I don't think it's even fair to judge the coaching staff yet.
Well, we know they're not going to change their evil ways because that's the way it's always been. That's the way it's going to be. People can't underestimate the role that Stephen Jones plays. Everybody thinks Jerry Jones runs everything. No, Stephen runs everything. Jerry makes the final decisions. And so when Jerry is not able to be the general manager and oversee the personnel department anymore, that will be up to Stephen Jones. The coaches have to Will McClay, who has turned down GM jobs because Jerry must pay him better than GMs make. And he's a really good personnel man. And I'm sure that McCoy gives them his advice. And probably Jerry doesn't listen. He'll listen to do what he and Stephen want done. But right now, if you're a Cowboy fan, you got to be excited about the offense. Hope the defense improves and doesn't suffer any more significant injuries, because if they throw the ball like they have been, they're capable of beating anybody in the NFC. That includes Detroit, who looks like the best team in the NFC.
John, question about Mike Evans, who went down in that Tampa Bay game. He is among the top 40 in receptions, top 25 receiving yards, and top 10 in touchdowns. Won a Super Bowl when Brady was there, I think. And where is he as far as a Hall of Famer?
Well, he'll be a first ballot member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This broken collarbone will keep him from 1,000 yards for the first time. And when I think about Mike Evans, who at one point in Galveston, he was a better basketball player and thought he was going to go to college on a basketball scholarship, and he's turned out pretty darn good. And I'm sure he'll come back. They're not saying he's done for the season, but as someone who's had a broken collarbone, so many of us have, and we don't have to hit anybody or get hit, that is a serious injury for a football player. But Baker Mayfield's playing so well, and yeah, they lost that game, but Detroit is really good. But Baker's winning no matter who's on the field. But Evans is such a class act, and 5 years after his career is over, he'll be enshrined in Canton.
He had Johnny Manziel earn the Heisman Trophy, but my goodness, did Mike Evans more than once make him look even better than he was.
Absolutely did. You know, there's only one Aggie in the Hall of Fame. Mike Evans will be the second. The one is safety Yale Larry.
There's only one?
Yale Larry. Golly, yeah.
Wow. Like, well, Richmond Webb, is he not in the Hall of Fame yet?
Nope.
Wow. Oh, holy cow. I did not realize that.
All those years growing up, your
Hard
dad
to
said he
believe,
had a
isn't
bunch
it?
of Hall of Fame. Richmond Webb was, I know he was just inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame.
Do you think Richmond Webb will ever get in or no?
Richmond has just started to get in as a finalist and gets discussed. He had 7 Pro Bowls when Pro Bowls meant something. He also protected Dan Marino's blind side, and he's got Marino calling around for him. I know Richmond lives here, and I've got to know him pretty well. I think eventually he will get in.
Lester Hayes isn't in?
Nope. He's been a finalist many times, but he's never made it. Now he's in a senior, and it's so weird. A guy will be a finalist for years, and all of a sudden, people just forget about him.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Notre Dame and USC, by the way, the colleges with the most at 14.
I would guess that Myles Garrett and Von Miller will have a shot when they're done. Shane Leckler is going to be an interesting discussion with you guys when you decide to put another punter in. And I guess Ray Childress and Sam Adams had come up at some point too, right?
Yeah, no, they're not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Garrett will, of course. I think Von Miller will be as well. And they'll not sure who will retire first, Evans or Garrett. I'm guessing Evans, but there'll kind of be a run on Aggies there, and they'll be, very deserving.
John, thank you very much. How have you digested your football alma mater in Baylor with now 4-3 and coming off another loss because they always lose to TCU?
I'll put it like this. I think I saw where their defense is 98, and out of the Power 4 conferences, only Oklahoma State is worse, and that tells you everything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mentioned that, in fact, yesterday. Thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
By the way, thank you very much. Somebody asked about, okay, how many players? I know we got to get to the ending clump. Texas has 5. Earl Campbell, Bobby Dillon, Tom Landry, Bobby Lane, and Tex Schramm are part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Tech, Zach Thomas. You may think that there's a bunch. It's hard.
No, it is.
It is hard.
And yeah, I would think Richmond Webb. I mean, I guess looking at Sam Adams' stats, he was probably more of just a really good player than a great one when he was in the NFL. Ray Childress, I just thought would get in. But maybe I think of him in a bit of a different way.
You wonder about the length of his career.
Yeah. But yeah, Lester Hayes not being in is the biggest shock.
Yeah, no, because I consider him one of the best that played the game. Oklahoma, Craig, Troy Aikman, technically, Pat Bolin, Tommy McDonald, Leroy Selman, and Ron Wolf. It's like you think all the great names, and that's and I think Aikman should be under UCLA.
Aikman should absolutely be under UCLA, but
and he is listed under both.
Yeah, of course he should be. And I think he would choose that and probably did choose that as well, Troy Aikman. But I guess it's something that seemed strange long ago. And now, I mean, you're going to have dudes, college football Hall of Fame. Like, what are the 5 teams that you played for? Although you probably weren't a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
There won't be any Hall of Famers that played for 5 teams. But, I mean, Dylan Gabriel played for what, 3?
4?
No,
UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon. I thought,
3.
Yeah.
So there will be some guys with 3 schools. Which one do you choose if you're Dylan Gabriel?
In baseball, you choose a cap. In football, you don't. There's no.
Yeah.
You just mentioned where you played.
It's just a bust of your face.
Yeah. Not that he'll have that opportunity because he's not going to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But if we're just thinking out loud here.
But I know Dat Wynn is on the ballot this year. He's not going to get in, which kills me because I love him. And not just from afar. He's a good friend of ours. But Jacob Green is another guy I thought would
Phil
be
Bennett
there.
would go to war for Jacob
Yeah,
Green.
and Jacob
Good
Green was
friend
a
of
really
his.
good player for a long time, but he and Childress and Sam Adams all essentially had the same career.
Yeah.
So they're kind of stuck there.
Yeah, you got to be the elite of the eight. Real quickly, Florida State, Biletnikoff, Derek Brooks, Leroy Butler, Walter Jones, and Dion. As many great players as they've had. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5. We'll have the spin the wheel. I always screw that up for some reason. And we'll have some sports quizzes and the poll results. This is 365 Sports.
You need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Flag and Anthem. Go to flagandanthem.com. Use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. Top 5 Colorado State candidates. A Norvell was fired this week. It was Jay Norvell, no relation to Mike Norvell from Colorado State. Number 5 on their replacements, Tim Skipper at UCLA. This might be number 1. I'm just listing 5 guys here. I'm not sure what Colorado State's overall goal is, but these guys are all fits. Tim Skipper's done a great job at UCLA. They're on a 3-game winning streak. The culture's there's flipped around. We'll see. I don't think he's going to get the full-time job there because I do think that UCLA wants to take a bigger swing and say that they are more committed to football than they have been in the past. But Tim Skipper deserves a head coaching job somewhere, and this is a really nice jump for him to prove to everybody else that this little run at UCLA is not a fluke. Number 4, Brian Harsin. Boise State legendary coach Brian Harsin. Maybe slow down at legendary, but he had a ton of success at Boise State. He did not have success at Auburn, but guess what? His replacement hasn't either. So maybe, just maybe, it wasn't all Brian Harsin and his problems at Auburn. Was it a fit? No. But he's proven to be an effective coach at a couple different spots. He is on the staff at Cal right now and doing a good job there, developing quarterbacks and the like. I think he's ready to get back into the head coaching ranks. Colorado State provides a nice little jumping spot for him. Number 3, Tim Plow. Used him last week in another top 5. This job also really fits him. UC Davis is awesome. He's a great coach and an innovator. Fits well there and a nice jump for him to prove what he can do. Number 2, Marcus Arroyo at Arizona State. This is one of the better offensive coordinators in the country. Works with Sam Leavitt. Ready for a head coaching opportunity. Colorado State's a good fit for him. You want quarterback developers, and sometimes you have to take jobs maybe a little bit smaller than you have envisioned for to prove. Again, people want head coaching experience. Go get it at Colorado State. Go win there, which I think Marcus Arroyo can do. I think he's proven out that he is a very effective play caller and now needs a shot to show that he's a head man if he wants it. And number 1, Kirby Moore from Missouri, another guy who fits the old out west jobs like Oregon State. He was in that top 5 as well, if you remember. But Kirby Moore, another fit. He's probably getting a head coaching job. Mizzou has a fantastic offense in spite of some sluggish play in their win over Auburn early on in that game. Kirby Moore finds a way out of it. He's really good coaching quarterbacks. And again, like I said with Marcus Arroyo, quarterback developers are more important now than they've ever been in college sports. So Kirby Moore, my number 1 candidate for Colorado State. That's going to do it for us. Andrew Villate's Carnival starts right now.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Your turn.
Okay. The wheel.
In the sky.
Is spinning. Okay. If you could swap 2 Power 4 teams in 2 different conferences, which 2 would you swap?
Based on your favorite conference?
Or
just in general?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Craig. Well, then you do it then.
I'm trying to still digest the question here.
I would.
Let's see what the chat says on this one.
I would bring Nebraska back to the Big 12, and I would give the Big 10. I'd have to swap them, right, Andrew? Like somebody has to come in and go out. And I would give the Big 10 Baylor.
You would what?
Look, I'm not. He didn't say make fair trades. That way they get their foothold in Texas, which is what they really want. And then I would, this is a really tough one because I can only do 2, and I have 1 each conference, right? Yeah, it's just 1 and 1. 1 and 1. Man, this is a tough one.
This is a filibuster.
I would trade Louisville and West Virginia into conferences.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could see that. That would actually geographically make some sense. I'm having a hard time because just doing the 1 is limiting me. I would love to see USC, Washington, Oregon back in the Pac-12.
Oh, yeah.
If I had a magic wand, that would be great. But now they're, of course, all in the Big Ten, so that's not happening. But yeah, that Louisville one's a really good one.
Yeah, that is. I don't, man. I want to just go back to what it was because it's not because I want to be old school. That I just love the way football, just the innocence of college football. But I would say, yeah, Nebraska, but they're not going to give up the money. But Nebraska back in the Big 12. So who do you take from the Big 12? Utah. And you put them in the Big 10. Just to get them out of here because you're tired of them talking since the beginning of time. And they have been good at, but they have not been as good as they think they are.
Actually,
fans. I'm talking about the fans.
I would go with Nebraska trade-up for Utah. Now, I think Nebraska would look around and would probably love to feel like they are the big bosses, although I think they'd immediately, once they started losing, go back to bitching about how like they're carrying the weight for everybody because they're the big brand, that whole song and dance. But if you could just like take away the human element of people's personalities and emotions and things like that, and you're saying like what would be really cool, then yeah, I think Nebraska for Utah would be really cool. But unfortunately my brain immediately fast forwards to the Nebraska fans bitching about having to travel to Manhattan or wherever, even though they've got great history in a lot of those places. But yeah, I if you're going to trade somebody in the Big 12, the team you trade out is Utah. And I think that's without question. And I don't have anything personal against Utah. I've actually defended them more often than not because I do think it's like this tsunami of BYU that you can encounter online where there's just so many fans, right? It feels like you're fighting like 1,000 people. And especially when non-BYU fans are like lumped in with that because they like are riding the wave of it as well because they're getting all the BYU fans that they're following them and liking them. So it's always felt like 100 against 1. But every time I start to give them benefit, they bring it on themselves. They absolutely have some dude pop up like, U11 that's just like F you guys, it's and maybe it's not to that extreme, but it's just how it comes across, right? It just feels like, yeah, it's been a thorn in everybody's side the entire time going in both directions. And it went from being kind of funny, kind of cute to now it's like, yeah, it's just sort of annoying. Like it's like I get that it's not your
so mad.
Like why are you it's like exactly it's like you and like if you didn't act as though you were so above it all then I would have no problem with you just saying like, well, we'd rather be in the Pac-12 because we fought really hard to get there, and that's what we always wanted. Well, I understand that. So did Washington State and Oregon State and a bunch of other teams. That's all they ever wanted. So I understand where you're coming from there, but like it is what it is now. I'm not saying you got to go like wear Brett Yormark face printed T-shirts or anything, but can you just be like make the best of the situation? And instead, they're still bitching about where they used to live. And
well,
I think
their they just kind of felt like they were better.
And then you walk in and you've proven nothing.
Yeah.
Like literally nothing at all in anything, not even the sport that you were braggadocious about to begin with. And so it's like 2 years in and like BYU owns you. I mean, like I've actually defended Utah.
Do you hear his response to that about losing 3 in a row? Well, wait a minute. We won 9 straight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's a guy that's on the way out anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a great respect for him as a coach, but I would say whoever you're trading from the Big 12, you're trading Utah out without a doubt. And I still have respect for their fans and the people who are just going about their business. They're not to all be stereotyped because of 3 or 4 people on Twitter. But damn, it's been like 2 years of those same 3 or 4 people being the same way, even when they've been given 100 reasons to be a little less that way.
Yeah,
they're still that way.
They need to calm down. Yeah. Had a hell of a run those last few years. So had a good run under Whittingham, but the last couple of years have been. We'll see how the rest of this year.
I picked them to win this past weekend.
I did not. I was actually the BYU guy. All right, now
I think that's where my frustration is coming from. Is I've given them the benefit of the doubt, like on multiple occasions, because of that attitude, and every single time I've been let down.
All right, which of these teams was not a part of the original 6?
I know the Bruins were, and I know the Rangers were. Now I'm stuck on.
Oh gosh, dang it, man! I think it's the Penguins, but I'm not 100%.
I'm gonna say Pittsburgh.
I think it's the Penguins.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah. 1967.
Call me Mr. Hockey around these parts.
They doubled the league from 6 to 12 teams. The original 6 was Boston. I could almost do that. Boston, Chicago, Detroit,
Toronto,
New York,
Montreal.
Toronto, and
Montreal.
Yeah.
So the only thing was like Detroit's a little far west, but considering Toronto is there, then it's not. So that's why
right across
so it's right there. But in Pittsburgh, back when they formed, was not really a major sports town yet.
Yeah, that's the Steelers had just started 7 years prior to that, right, Garrett? 1960, they were part. I think that's when they joined professional
Garrett, you like
football.
hockey. You know the entire history of the league.
Yeah,
I know the entire
Yeah.
All right.
Next.
NFL team tested a secret radio helmet. Oh, the New England. In 1950, before official helmet communication was allowed in 1994. If it's in the 50s, I'm going to look at Paul Brown was an innovator, right?
Yeah.
Back with Cleveland.
But so was George Hallis.
Yeah, he was. And Lombardi wasn't there yet with Green Bay.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with you
with Paul Brown.
With Paul Brown.
Craig, you okay with that?
I mean, they seem like the team, even still to this day, that would need him more than anybody else. So, yeah.
Paul Brown was an innovator, but let's see.
Hey, good call, Smokey. Yeah.
All right. John Campbell and George Sorrells made a radio small enough to fit in the quarterback's helmet, letting the Browns coach Paul Brown send plays directly to the field, tested in secret, interrupted by a police officer. Helmet worked flawlessly in an exhibition game, but later banned. The idea was decades later, ahead of its time, becoming a standard in 1994. Yeah, Paul Brown. Yeah. You have Landry and all that, but Paul Brown and Hallis were the ones at the beginning.
So my high school.
And I remember he's the great-great-grandfather of Connor Stallions. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Found it, yeah.
So my high school coach, Jim Scarry, his dad, Mo Scarry, played for Paul Brown. And then he coached. He was the defensive line coach of the 72 Dolphins.
Oh.
Yeah. And so then he was retired in Fort Myers.
So he still pops champagne every year.
He would come to our practices, and you want to talk about like a grizzled old coach. Like if you didn't get below the pads, I mean, he was hitting you in the helmet,
And he could back then.
Yeah, Coach Mo was great. But on a bus back from a win one time, I said, Coach, I'm just really curious. You played for Paul Brown, and he told me all these stories about how like brilliant he was and all these things that he did. And he said that every day as a coach in his whole career, he would, when faced with a problem, he would go, what would Paul Brown do before he asked any other question? Because he was that innovative and brilliant.
Now that's everyone who ever coached with Nick Saban.
And now,
saying that, yeah.
and now his son owns the Bengals, and the
Yeah.
apple has fallen quite far from the tree.
Yes, very much so. From, let's see, Gregory Krug. The Penguins used to play in the Igloo, yep, which had retractable roof at one point in hockey. All right, the poll questions. Which college basketball conference is stacking the most talent this year? Ooh, the Big 12.
595
63%. You know, they got some incoming alphas, but a lot of people do, but that will be interesting.
I thought BYU alone could have won this poll.
Yeah.
The SEC is a little too far behind on this. In reality, I think the Big 12 and SEC, as far as talent goes, is pretty equal. I think the Big
Look
10,
how many votes, too.
Yeah. The Big 10, you know, like they're a good conference, but I think the Big 12's due for maybe a bounce back from a year that they were
Where does UConn play?
Yeah, they play in the Big East.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've only got 4 options here, but where would the ACC be?
Yeah, I don't even see them on there. Yeah,
it's not worth listening right now.
I mean, how is the basketball conference not
Duke,
worth
North
listening
Carolina?
right now?
Yeah. So
Miami.
here's the deal: you sacrificed the good of your football league for basketball for 30 years, and now where are you?
I know. There you go. All right, the other poll. Steve Spurrier says coaches are as good as their record. You are as good as your record says you are. Is he right? 56% dominant say yes.
You are what your record says you are. That was
Parcells. Was that Parcells?
But
yeah.
Spurrier said it on a podcast, of which I wound up watching about 30 minutes of today, because it was just solid. Steve Spurrier, another old guy in Gainesville, and Spurrier is solid gold. He is solid gold. I did not appreciate him when I was in college and he was the rival coach. I was just a dumb college kid who yelled at him. I got to say, now I love him.
He would be great in today. He would be amazing in today.
Well, he cuts through a lot of the bullshit.
Yeah,
I mean, for lack of a better term, he cuts through a lot of like the media talking points. Like he's not afraid to criticize Arch Manning, or he's not afraid to like go against the grain on some of the things that are, you expect him to maybe dance around a bit more. He's just like, I'm old and I've got more money than God, and I'm fine to say what I want to now and not have to worry about it as much.
He basically said in the same podcast because he's talking about Billy Napier, and you could tell he was trying to be nice to a fired coach of a guy he probably personally likes, but he's Billy, we had some decisions in that game, and went right down to the end, and thankfully the quarterback just threw the ball right to our defensive tackle, and we won the game.
Yeah,
so
Spurrier would be great. He would be Lane Kiffin on steroids.
Well, that's Lane Kiffin.
He is.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin's whole vibe is because he was a Spurrier fan.
Yeah.
Which is why Florida thinks they can get him.
I think he's right. I do think that for the most part, you're as good as your record. I do think there's times when, like, I don't think Ed Orgeron's the greatest X's and O's coach. I think Joe Burrow and those receivers made him look really damn good for a year. But I do think you're more your record than saying the game's different or things like that. Like if you can, I think Spurrier in the NIL era could still coach his ass off.
Oh yeah.
And you can't just go like, but he'd be running the fun and gun. Well, no, you don't play the game that way. You don't take a dude who didn't have access to all these tools for 60 years and go like,
fun and gun was innovative.
Right,
So
but
he
I'm
would
saying though,
innovate again.
if he had 30 more years of coaching to learn all of the things that are being out there now, he'd probably still be the cutting edge guy that Kiffin and all them were following now. But
Innovators innovate.
right, exactly.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I don't think it's the modern game's different. And I don't think only at Blue Bloods that's true. We've already we're talking about the Baylor job and the whatever other jobs that, obviously are having their own conversations right now. But it's probably a little bit more complex than that. I will give that, but I definitely think you are who your record is more than anything.
I subscribe to the Steve Spurrier podcast. That's growth as a human being.
I can imagine if I ever have time, and sometimes if I was driving, I'd listen to it.
If you had to follow either the Tim Tebow or the Urban Meyer podcast, which one would you choose?
Oh God.
Would you rather pick up a moccasin or a copperhead?
Out of spite, it would be Tim Tebow's because Urban Meyer stole my name.
Well, and Urban Meyer's also unlikable, whereas I don't think Tim Tebow's like a super.
I know some of the content. I would roll my eyes at Tim Tebow's, would it be a better?
Yes,
podcast.
but he's not like an unlikable ass or anything like that.
I would get mad when he'd be like, "Look, in the fourth quarter, it was just God on our side."
Yeah,
that stuff. I'd be like, "Okay, Tim, like tell me
God
tell me
picked
what
sides.
they did." Yeah,
he would pick sides. Yeah,
he picked his over and over and over.
We know God does not like Ole Miss.
Brandon Rowe, thank you very much for running the mothership, and Garrett Ross for running you. Right there next to you, here, you're a wingman, and Garrett with his Stars jersey on as hockey season has begun. And Andrew Ville's out tomorrow, back Thursday. So tomorrow we'll do our Big 12 picks. Thursday we'll do our college football banger picks. And Tim Brando will join us Fox Sports tomorrow, along with a lot of other things we have. Craig and Paul, thank you as always. Thank you to our sponsors, those who watch and listen. I'm David Smoak. Good night.